Good job.
Hey, Don. Connie. Hey, all right, I got you on. So good evening, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, February 13th, the advisory committee meeting. And first up, we have an initial discussion around budget proposal recommendations from the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee. So you guys are welcome to sit there since it's the front row. So if you wouldn't mind providing a brief history background, we did receive the packet of material in terms of the timeline that you guys have laid out, the introduction, the mission statement, I guess if you will, of the committee, and some background. But just for the purposes of everyone in the room who may not have a packet and those who may decide to be listening in or watching, if you could just give us a brief overview and then give a sense of what you're here for, and we'll open up the discussion from there.
Do you want to bring people up to the table so we...
They're welcome to, if you want to come to the table.
If Ted
and Connie are not here. If you want to...
Yeah, let me get around there, and then you guys can at least feel like you're not out in left field.
The 3 feet of distance is a huge... It's our... Yeah. So, welcome.
Friendly, Brad.
Thank you. Yeah, so just maybe first by way of introduction, I'm Doug Newshafer, chairman of the committee. Chris Lineberry is one of, I think we said 6 official members, and then Joe, everybody knows Joe. He and Chief Nelson are ex-official members of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So we recognize that this is probably somewhat disruptive to your process, both in terms of the timing and the magnitude of the number. So that was the main reason I wanted to, give you the timeline, show you why we're here now, and kind of what we've been doing behind the scenes and where we are today. So our committee was formed by the Board of Selectmen back in October. Our charge is a little bit longer than what I gave you here, but essentially it was to go out and to provide the board with initial budget recommendations for a future project on Main Street, Route 117, and the things that should be addressed on 117, they have listed in our charge. So it's to better manage and calm traffic, it was to ensure that the roads are as hospitable to human activity and interaction, to thwart the town's separation because of traffic, and so on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what we determined, the best way that we determined to do that was to provide that budget recommendation was to go out to design firms, okay? And so we did that. So in the middle of November, we developed a request for information, which I think I attached to the email. Joe launched that to the design community. And we gave them a due date, unfortunately we have the holidays coming up against us, so we gave them a due date of mid-January, and I think it was the 22nd of January.
It's nothing like pressure to finalize an RFP.
Right, yeah. And we had an open house scheduled for January 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Brad, just to be clear, so what we do, this is a preemptive approach to understand what a scope of work might look like in order to issue an RFP. This was not a formal RFP.
Right.
This was really just to get the design community and the consulting community in the same room, so we could honestly just pick their brains, understand what sort of aspects they would look at. We knew what we wanted to look at. We wanted to hear it from them, and then aggregate all those together. So that's what the purpose was. So we haven't gone out to RFP yet.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And you don't have an RFP yet either, do you?
We don't.
Yeah.
And that was the process that we went through in order to put
develop
together,
one,
to
yeah.
develop one.
Right.
Makes sense.
So, January 18th, the responses came in. I've distributed responses to everyone. We met as a committee on the 25th or so to review the responses. It was at that meeting that we went through, I think the back page is what I sent out, was sort of a high-level summary of the numbers. Not really evaluating apples to apples, but just the raw numbers that we got from the firms. So they kind of informed, the number that we took back to the Board of Selectmen on February 1st as the initial budget recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
And so with that, just for the purposes of everyone here, the various RFIs, if you will, I guess, right? All came back, varying numbers. One chose not to bid, and a high of 222, a low of 39, an average of 120 in change.
So the one that was 30 in the 30s actually didn't attend the open house.
All right, so you
threw
them out.
So they didn't
Okay.
have the insight that the others did, and
All right.
that's probably why their scope is a little bit
All right.
suspect.
So we say throw them out, again, it's not that they're disqualified from future action, when we put an RFP out, they certainly could respond to it then.
Yeah.
And
You've
so
just
can any
discarded
others.
them from this particular list.
Right.
We can't even use the numbers in this list to even develop some sort of a criteria. The RFP is gonna be totally 100% separate. This is really informal. We asked them, we told them you're gonna be in a room with your competitors and with citizens and residents and possibly
It's really more of an
selectmen.
expression interest with an initial scope.
Yeah, so we wanted to, as Joe said,
You don't know what you
they're
don't
the
know yet.
experts.
Yeah.
We're not, they've probably been to more town meetings than we have, presenting community outreach for things like this. So we wanted to really have a meaningful number, and this is the kind of way Joe suggested we do it, and it worked out beyond their expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. So the specific ask, so given this, based upon the data that you folks received, your desire is 150,000, and that money will then be used to officially launch an RFP? Is that my understanding?
Well, I think what we would do is, over the course of the next several months, we would develop an RFP, we would launch the RFP. The budget for that RFP would be the $150,000. We would sort of tailor the scope of that RFP to be in line with what we got, so that we fell within that budget. And then we would look to, award after those responses came in.
But the RFP, developing the RFP and setting out the RFP will happen sort of in parallel with other efforts that, if we decided to go forward with this, with other efforts, including, the warrant and the town meeting and so on. Where the plan is to have the RFP completed and have that hard number, whether it's 150 or $97,533.23, whatever that is, by the time.
Now, this is just for engineering.
This is just for
Correct.
study.
Do you know how many hours that is? Ted isn't here, but Ted and I talked about this. He's a lot more knowledgeable than I am, and he said that generally you estimate about $1,000 an hour for consultants for engineering work, which means 100 hours of,
Well, so Ted and I met last week.
That's
and
a
Ted-
lot.
Well, actually, Ted was running a number closer to $100 an hour, and I assured him that the number for the class of engineering consultant and planner that would be looking for is closer to $150 to $190 an hour. And if you're looking at all of those hours, with all the community outreach that's involved in the data collection and the analysis of it, it is all of that.
wow.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that, and I want to be real careful to clarify, because you're going to hear phrases, maybe you already have started to hear phrases, of a complete streets policy the town's considering, as opposed to this. So if you think of the entire town being covered under umbrella, as Chris so well puts it, and the entire umbrella is covered by those principles of a complete community when it comes to transportation. The Complete Streets policy and the Complete Streets effort looks at the entire town, how it addresses, or how it lacks to address, all of the modes of transportation in every neighborhood, in a very, very high altitude general sense. This, under that umbrella, takes all of those concepts and applies them to the extent that it's practical and physically possible along the corridor in a very detailed way.
Okay, I'm gonna
Much
ask
more detailed than the
some specific questions here, because as certainly Stan and Don know, I was involved, at least peripherally, in the last effort to have the state take over the 117 corridor. I'm wondering how this final plan compares with what DOT was originally planning.
It's a great question, because you know what?
We don't know.
No, it's because
Right.
of us
okay.
maintaining local control
That's
and
right.
the desire to want to. This actually allows us to maintain local
Right,
control
and then
through our policy.
The next question I have ties into the warrant article that you have submitted, Joe, which would give us the authority to lower speed limits to 25 miles an hour. Whether they'd be followed any better than the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is out of the scope of this conversation, but,
We've got that on the town,
yeah, that's on the line.
yeah.
Well, request, yeah, it's draft warrant, it's still,
Right.
right? So there's actually two provisions of the Governor's Municipal Modernization Act that, you know, that are among
Right.
dozens that are out there. There were
Yes.
two that pertain to traffic and speed regulation. One, and I don't have the exact citations with me, but one allows the community to have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit anywhere it sees fit, should it
Right.
make sense. And that only applies in business district of thickly settled areas.
And this is basically is what the city of Boston is doing.
Oh, they're going to go down to
Yeah.
20.
There are.
Well, they're thickly settled,
Yeah,
but,
there's 100 communities that already
Right.
have it in place.
right, okay.
So this would just give us the
A tool
authority.
that we don't currently have.
Right, exactly.
The other aspect of it, and again, it only applies in business districts and thickly settled
Right.
neighborhoods, areas, which is defined in state law.
Mhm.
Quite frankly, there aren't many areas where that applies in town here, except maybe just the village area on 117.
Right.
So it's, if you think of it in that area, it may make sense to have the tool to consider, you don't have to
Right.
consider doing it in those locations. The other part, which I think is 18C, that's from Law Chapter 90, 18C, allows in areas that regardless of where, if it's thickly settled business or not, if there is a demonstrated and measured and analyzed concern for safety,
Right.
you can create safety zones as low as 20 miles an hour. That could apply in any neighborhood,
Mhm.
so long
you
as
have
it's substantiated by
statistics,
engineering
right.
data.
Right, okay, well,
So this would
that's,
begin
so
to give
that's-
us that engineering,
And that-
the opportunity to do that.
So, again, Complete
Yeah.
Streets isn't gonna look at that aspect, they're gonna
Yeah.
simply say, across the entire town, we want to consider things like pedestrian traffic and ADA mobility and bicycle combination,
pedestrian,
and
right.
walkability, as well as traffic and safety,
Sure.
and all of those things together.
Under
And-
local control in the context of the town.
In the context of the neighborhood, not just the town.
Right.
You know, there may be things that are perfectly valid on Flatbush Mill Road that make no sense on Golden Run.
Sure.
So, even though the general principle is to accommodate them whenever you have the opportunity to.
So let me just take a back up here. So complete streets, big umbrella over the whole town.
But just a template, not in the detail, not a shovel specific, here's what we're gonna do in this intersection.
Nothing that solves anything that would be identified.
Yeah,
It's a policy.
Yeah, I'm here every week and I feel as though I've got a pretty good handle on what's going on in town. So is this in place already or is it working towards?
Working towards, and the hope would be, and the selectmen will hear this question for a second reading on Thursday this week. And I believe they're at a point where they can ask questions, of course, if they need, but I think they're close to understanding it.
So assuming a yes on that, then those criteria then fall into anything that you're doing on.
So we now have a policy approved by the selectmen, gets submitted to DOT Boston.
And then you can
For
get
your
some
point.
grant money, right?
And
Yes.
once you are a complete streets community, you're eligible, and thank you, because that's exactly where I was going. Why would I start down the complete streets road, if you will? Because once we become a complete streets community, we then have a pool of money between $30,000, $50,000 in order to carry out a prioritization plan. That again looks at the entire town and then prioritizes your worst locations and your best locations, again, very high altitude. And the thought would be that when we put the RFP out, with it, Complete Streets policy in place, we would put this type of RFP out in 2 tiers. Tier 1 would be to carry out the prioritization plan, funded by grant money
For complete streets.
for complete streets. And from the results of that umbrella, let's cover the Main Street corridor and award it to the same firm should town meeting ever approve it. If they don't, we're gonna ask them in the RFP to honor that number for 18 months. So we need to get through the next, and ask them to do that.
À la carte, kind of.
Right.
All right, let me take a pause here. Doug Lowe?
I just wanted to make a comment that as far as $150,000 goes for the engineering, a good rule of thumb for any sort of project like this is the engineering cost is about 10 to 12% of the value of the projected value of the project, and this project will easily be in excess of $1 million. So there's no question that that engineering, I think that engineering, the estimate for engineering, I think is quite appropriate.
And I feel as though there needs to be a decision tree laid out, like, complete streets does this, and then if this, that happens, and then where this all fits in.
So I think I was trying to do that, and I apologize.
No, I'm not saying it's you, it's,
And we talked about it too, we need a visual, we need to come up with a visual on
Yeah.
all this. So
Yeah.
there's 3 moving parts, and it's not easy to connect them all and make
Yeah.
sense
So
of it.
one has to be substantially assessed before the next one fits in, because your complete streets will give you your pinch points, your,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but it's logical that it
Yeah.
is. You would hate to duplicate efforts on a lack efficiency by
I think it's a
carrying
big,
out
yeah,
separately.
it's a place to start, and then you can see the holistic problem, and then you could begin to hone in on priorities within that scope.
And I guess the good news is that we're very close to a policy that makes sense. It's been deliberated, internally in town here for some period of time, and it's, moved through the selectmen's process pretty well. Assuming that it's approved, we're very confident, and I mean very confident, that it will receive the points necessary, that the town becomes a complete street. The grant money to do the prioritization plan is a guarantee. It's not competitive, it's not that we need to worry about maybe we're gonna miss the
That's nice
deadline.
to hear.
It's guaranteed. So breaking it out in an RFP form to get 2 elements only makes sense because we know we're gonna award this first piece regardless of what happens at town meeting. But we wanna go through the effort of assuring, that the person who gets the umbrella is also protecting that thing that's gonna come later on and has that knowledge base going into it.
In the interest of long-term planning, because I think we've been doing a very good job with our capital costs this budget season, what are the long-term, do we have a 5-year plan? How are we paying for this? $1 million, $1.5 million? What does this do to our 5-10-year capital plan? Do we have I don't want to just vote for 150,000 not knowing and I'm sure people at town meeting are going to ask the same question. What's the long-term plan and how are we allocating that per year, and how does that fit in our capital plan?
well, that's exactly my problem, is I'm sitting here, I'm supposed to know all this finance stuff, you're the accountant, and I don't have the whole picture here. That's why I was talking decision tree. Like, the town says yes to $150, what are they really saying yes to? Right, well, they're
So the
saying,
decisions are yours,
The town is
based
getting,
on,
town will be receiving a master plan which will lay out along the Main Street 117 corridor from Lancaster all the way to Stowe, the full length of that corridor,
And feeder roads.
in the feeder roads coming into it,
yes.
a master plan in sequence by priority of what projects they should pick off in which order and what those values will be. It is in fact the plan that you're asking for.
And it could be a 10-year plan.
and then we
It could
have
be a
a
20-year
decision
plan.
of when
That's
we
right.
are able to
Right.
fund
Yeah,
each
when
one
it's
of
all
those.
funded.
Yeah. Right,
And
but
we-
rather than picking one element and saying we want to do this, but if it's the 4th thing on the priority and because the other 3 things are impacted by what you might do out of order, should be very cognizant to do them in the right order.
So getting this initial plan in place, we're not necessarily obligating the town to fund each of these elements on some
Absolutely
schedule
not.
over the next 5 years.
No, it's a plan.
So, one other question, so you're here looking for 150,000, but I also heard grant, so why are you asking for 150,000?
Because it's actually closer to 200,000, but we're pretty certain that that $40,000 to $50,000 number from the top will be funded through the complete streets piece of it. To do just the corridor piece is the 150. to do the corridor piece and the prioritization plan under complete streets is an additional 40.
So what's the timing for the money from the program? Does that come in at the same time, or is that something you apply for later?
So
So this kicks off the initial study. I mean, most times I've worked on traffic studies and so forth, you sort of put the money in the bucket first, and then that gives you access to various revenue streams to implement.
So so let's break it into elements. The
Yeah.
complete streets money, the only timetable is driven by local approval by the Board of Selectmen, in the case of a town, submission to the state in a review, in approval under a point system, that a policy meets all the criteria, and we're 99, I can darn say we're 100% confident that it meets the state criteria. And when the state approves it, we are then eligible within a month's time to get that full money.
Now,
So that's up to 50,000.
is this the program that Bob was citing, that talked about having to have sidewalks, the full, no, okay, that was
Well,
something.
no, I didn't mean to cut you short, Joe, because it may be that you're on the right track.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
That was an assumption made in that proposal that was erroneous,
Oh, okay.
all right? That proposal made an assumption that the Complete Streets program would provide a sidewalk that was just pulled out of the air.
No, just to clarify for those folks at home, because I think you are all starting to grasp it. In a perfect world, on every single street in Bolton, we want to promote efficient movement of vehicles. And we want to have enough room on the side of the road to park a car in front of your house, to have room for a bicycle to get by, a sidewalk and pedestrians to get by. But the key phrase here, two key phrases, is one, maintain local control, because Complete Streets Committee can grant waivers when, in the context of where these concerns are, let's take Golden Run, in the context, you want all of those things out there, it's not possible. And the town committee can say, we agree, under local control and under the context of that roadway, you cannot have a parking space in front of your house. It's impossible to have a sidewalk. And at best, we can put a shared paint line for bicycles, and that's it, at best. And in the end, what you have is a new built roadway that took all of the policy considerations into considerations, and in the end, you simply could only repave the road and put some paint lines on it. In other areas, there may be things you could do.
Sure.
So that's the intent of the overall policy.
I just want to go back to the point Nanachka raised. I know you guys can't say with specificity what the all-in cost for, completing a master plan for the 6 miles of 117 would be. But I do think it's helpful to try to give an order of magnitude, because I know when I was looking at the responses you got, it sounds like for certain levels of, I think they call it like a TIP, complete reconstruction, they were saying it was like $5 to $6 million per mile. Now, I don't think it would necessarily be $5 to $6 million for the 6 miles of 117, but could you give us just like an order of magnitude or like a range of what this master plan would lead to in future expenses, and if it's 10 years or 12 years or 8 years?
So I'm not going to give a window of years. It's going to be a forecast that over the corridor, the worst stretch of the corridor is in one particular location, and I'm not going to know what that is right now, but let's say it's Wattaquatic Road. And at Wattaquatic Road, in those first half a dozen or so high priority locations that are problematic, they will look and develop 2 to 3 scenarios, schemes if you will, for what, and even concept plans prepared of what that would look like, and then a thumbnail budget number. When you carry that out, you simply know that in this year's number, it's X number of dollars, next year is 3% more, the year after that 3% more. So therefore, you could forecast it over the future years. But what you'd want to do is that you wouldn't want to do the project down there if you know that doing that requires these other improvements made first. So that's the purpose of doing the prioritization of the corridor and coming up with an estimate. It is in fact the plan. It's the forecast of what the need is, it's the cost of what that forecast would be this year and future years. And And how it builds into your plan is based on the available funds and what year you fund it. It's a plan, it's a working document, you shouldn't, it's not that you're obligated to adhere to it, you should consider it. But when you stray from it, you need to understand where you're straying, what that does to the other parts of the plan.
I'd like to make a couple of points. First, complete streets can have a life of its own. I don't think that we want to tie complete streets to this effort. Complete streets can go, it's a no-brainer, it makes a ton of sense, it's still under local control. It should not be considered that it's hitched to this wagon or this wagon's hitched to any stretch of the imagination. The reason we're bringing it up together and the reason the engineers brought it together with our effort is because it doesn't make sense to go down two different paths with two different engineers who need to be talking about the same thing. Otherwise, it's just going to be inefficient and redundant. We're going to have to do a complete streets over again if we do this other thing. So, having said that, we would ideally like to have the same engineering if we can craft a way to make that happen, because it's going to be efficient, more efficient. It's going to save the town money overall if we go for both projects. If we just go for one project, complete streets can run on its own. So let's not tie them together. Complete streets makes total sense. It's funded by the state, basically, when you get to tier 2, that's fine. This committee got a charge to get a number, a meaningful number for what a study would cost, a corridor-wide study, Main Street 117, the feeder roads, how to improve everything. Not just mobility, not just bicycle traffic, but flow of traffic, calming traffic, get rid of the road rage, reduce speeds, yet still keep the traffic going so that we can have businesses who have employees who can get to daycare in time at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Some of these things conflict with each other. Crossways with lights for mobility for wheelchair people, for ADA. A lot of these things conflict, as I say. So it's a tough project. It's a tough thing to come up with a study that makes sense and gets a lot of that accomplished for the town. And that is where our charge ended, was get that number, and we talked about it in our meetings. We met almost every week. Don't forget, our deliverable is a number, not getting into 10 years down the road and what if there's a casino on Bolton Flats, where's that traffic going to go? No, just the number. And what's the next step in the charge? Get it to the Board of Selectmen, and that's what we did on February 1st. We have not looked at what it would cost, $6 million per mile, any of that. We can, if you want to add to our charge.
Well, I mean, the truth is, we won't know really that answer
No, but
until
you get the
until we get
We can
the
dig a
numbers.
little deeper and, maybe come up with something.
Tom, Mo?
I wanted to point out, since you were talking about grants, there's a brand-new grant that we learned about 2-3 weeks ago. There's two pieces of criteria which make a town eligible. One is, are you a complete streets community? We are, or we will be. And the other is, believe it or not, have you exceeded 5% in the number of housing starts over a period of time, which we have. So that makes us eligible for this grant that would allow us, it would fit the grant to apply for the $150,000 for the engineering under the grant. We've confirmed that the criteria would accept that. You don't find a lot of grants that fund engineering. They want to see, generally speaking, grant funders want to see the town, any town, pay for engineering. It's the town's skin in the game, and then they want to pay to do the work. So it's, as I said, brand new grant, so we have no history as to know whether or not, what our likelihood would be of success. I think our grant application would be very competitive. And I certainly we're going to apply for it.
So this is a competitive grant, unlike the...
It's absolutely a competitive grant with a fixed pool of money. But I do think we would be competitive. But I think it's important to make you aware of that and make the Board of Selectmen aware of it, because there's going to be a decision point, since it is such a tight fiscal year. Are we going to appropriate $150,000 out of available funds and earmark it and use it if we don't get the grant? Or would we apply for the grant, and if we fail to get it, then would that become an FY20 thing? So I don't know. I mean, that's something that to look at when as you juggle the budget numbers, whether or not you want to appropriate that $150,000 which may or may not be spent.
Well, given where we are with the budget and the stuff that's already ahead of these guys, I definitely like the grant approach. And it's just the other concern of, you're right, you guys did what you were asked to do by way of the charge, but I think it's important to get a bigger picture in exactly what, when we go ahead and apply and get this grant, or the town gives you the money and you go forward with an RFP, what exactly does that also mean, down the road? So you're saying that this would afford that. Have you guys, one question I would ask, and maybe the engineering firms would have the better answer, but how have you accounted for changes in requirements? So case in point, you were lucky enough not to be involved in the design and determination of the culvert a few years ago. There was a game plan in place, and there was a delay, and as a result, changes in engineering changed, and we had to go back and get re-engineering. So you guys, get 150 from the town, go out to RFP, get all the specs, and say, okay, here's the deal, and you lay it out. We're gonna do project 1 in 1 year. We got 10 projects, we're gonna do 1 a year, 10 years down the road, we'll be done. Year 3, the state changes, and this master plan is useless.
So the master plan is never useless, the master plan is a master plan. You're not getting contract documents, you're not getting plans or specifications or bid documents, things that are always subject to change. What you're getting is, along the corridor, these are the most problematic locations. These are the various scenarios, half a dozen, three to four, 5, at each location that you might consider doing, and a thumbnail estimate of what that would take to carry out. What that would become is a packaged up phase 1 of the first thing that we would bring in with a more detailed future request for a construction project, design and construction.
Yeah.
Identifying chapter 90 money, other state grant money, local money, whatever it is, we'll bring it in at that time. Once the approval and the funding is in place, you would then delve right into a design to the current codes and current standards, if you will. So it's always a moving target. But that's the beauty of a master plan, is it's brilliantly flexible. But what it does is it gives you that vision of where you want to be every inch of the way as you work towards that goal, that final goal.
So you don't do all the engineering at
Well,
once, you
absolutely
only
not.
do it by when you're prepared to do it on the continuum of time.
That's correct.
And then you follow the codes and the requirements that are in place at
Right.
that time, so you don't get stuck with the culvert deal.
Stan?
Yeah, I think to embellish on what Joe said, I mean, this 150K, what you're gonna wind up with is potentially a list of some number of priorities. We need to do, 1 through 10 or 1 through 20. And here's the order in which they need to be done. And that's all that gets you. It doesn't get you anything where it's nothing shovel ready. Then, when you determine what's number 1, 2, 3, and whatever, each individual project, now you're gonna have to spend more money on engineering to figure out what the scope of that project is. And some of that will have to be borne by the town, independent of any grant money, and then we may be able to apply for grants, whatever. So I think, to answer the question that's been looming, like what's the ultimate nut here, it's gonna be a big number. If you're looking at 117 from Lancaster to Stowe, and you're gonna outline 10,
And that's what
15,
you guys are charged with, right?
15, 20 prior,
Lancaster, Stowe.
or whatever it is,
Yeah.
we do know that just for fixing up 480 feet of 117 and replacing the lights, which we applied for a grant and didn't get it a year or two ago, that was $1 million. There were some estimates to do Wattaquatic in Maine, the left turn signal, that was about 2.5 or 3. So you're already at, $4 million for just those two. So at the end of the day, when all of this is said and done, it's gonna wind up being a big number, depending on how many of these projects that you're gonna do.
But it's also over some time, and depending on when money or grant money might be available. That this assessment of priorities, I think, takes the individual complainer out of it and gets,
Oh, right.
gets some dispassionate counsel on what are the priorities to do, to achieve those things.
Right,
And to
absolutely.
me, having gone through the wars, I think that's very helpful.
And you hit the nail on the head, with the exception that, I want to be clear that I don't think anybody ever should think that we're going to rebuild the full length of 117.
Oh, no.
In its entirety. These are locations local where the problems occur,
Yeah.
over short stretches.
But it's a
This
lot of
road
money.
is the biggest, certainly, transportation problem that the town has.
Right.
And
And we
this
have
is
a
a
high
way of
speed.
addressing it as a,
So John,
As
As a
long
whole.
as long as you take however small a baby step you want to take because of the budgeting of a particular year, but as long as you take those steps in sequence, you're not making it worse.
Right.
You might
And you're
only
not
get a little bit
wasting
better.
what you spent.
right. So John kind of dangled the carrot of this grant program that we just recently learned of, which is very, very good to help consider possibly funding, the study piece of it, the master plan piece of it. Beyond that, once we have both the Complete Streets policy in place and the Complete Streets priority plan in place, and this work product in place, we are then very, very competitive for $400,000 grants under the Complete Streets program, which is the governor's most successful program since he's taken office. The sun sets on that September 1st, and we have all indications it's included in this new budget to continue funding it for the next 4 years. So it really lays down the groundwork to leverage another $400,000 for a real project, hopefully the first one on the list.
Okay. So I want to be respectful of time. We're 10 minutes over. Any other questions from advisory regarding this topic?
I have a question.
All right.
Brad,
Yes.
I have a question. And excuse my ignorance, but the study, the engineering study would prioritize what we need to do a complete street, is that correct?
No.
no.
To make it? So exactly what is, am I looking at? What is a complete street? I mean, I don't understand the definition. I know it's to make it safe for travel and pedestrians and whatever, but what does that actually look like? What is the solution? Do you redesign the street? Do you move the street? I'm not sure exactly what it entails. I get why you do it. I just don't know when, let's say the plan goes forward and we pay for the study and we implement it, what does that actually mean? What do we do? What's the,
What's
what
it
do
all
we do?
about? Sure.
So Connie, I think you've got the right subject, but I think you have it in the reverse order. So Complete Street is a recognition by way of policy in town of what is important for various users of the transportation system. That means pedestrians and bicycles, and handicapped folks, and car drivers, and kids walking to and from school, or maybe to business areas. All those things need to be accommodated in the greatest extent practicable, and when you're not able to accommodate them, to then grant waivers from its own local authority, which is the Complete Streets Working Group, which I think is going to be called a committee. So what that means is, what does it look like? It depends. What's the context and where it's at? If you're on Golden Run Road, all of those things considered, what Golden Run is going to look like is a newly paved road with none of those things incorporated, because none of those things are possible. On Main Street, there are some areas where you could put sidewalk, and there are some areas you could put bicycle lanes. There are other areas where you cannot. So you have to take, every time you embark upon a project, the overriding principle is, can we meet these accommodations? And if we can't, we need to explain why we can't, and we get waivers granted locally, not by anybody else.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm good.
All right. Yep. Guys, thank you very much for coming in this evening and explaining.
I think that was Connie.
Yeah, that was not part of my, that was.
Connie's or Ted's, yep.
Good night, folks, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Joe.
lot.
All right, next up, the fire department, budget and capital items. Guys? Good evening.
Good evening.
So just to give an update, there's a few of us from advisory who met with the chief last Thursday evening. One, to just get a little bit of added background on what's happening, and then also just to assist with, tonight's meeting. So, a large part of the time was spent, digging more into the new apparatus proposal. We spent a little bit of time on the air compressor, and then also the budgeting standpoint. So, from that aspect, Chief, I'll turn things over to you. What would you like to start with this evening? Your call.
They're all good topics to begin with. I know that Margie Piaz is not able to make it tonight.
Okay.
She certainly would have input on the staffing
Yep.
issue. I don't know if you still want to hit on that one or not. Or
Yeah, so the staffing, so just to get everyone up to speed, the last time the chief came in here, there's been some, issues and concerns around coverage during the day. And so the proposal or the ask was for, and keep me honest here, Chief, 2 additional, spots, if you will. And those 2 spots represent 80 hours a week. And those 80 hours, the way you kind of envisioned it, would be essentially filled by a platoon of 6 to 10 people. Is that what?
that would be correct.
All right.
They would be per diem
Per
employees, which
diem.
is a type of part-time.
All right.
They're not
That's
benefited.
until 2019 though, right?
The-
To them, right?
The original proposal I had was to, for the remainder of FY18, to add these 2 per diem shifts during the daytime hours. And then in FY19, the proposal was to transition them to 2 full-time positions. Now, certainly,
So, and that raised a whole new question, right? Because we're in FY18 now, and how do we go back in time and readjust the budget? And we don't. So basically, we came to the conclusion that, we hope the hell there's no fire, or you guys, get there in plenty of time, and house goes to hell, so be it, right? So we kind of figured that was the game plan. 2019, and the new piece of information is you're heading off into the sunset here, retiring. So then the question comes, in addition to the already existing problem, what do we do in your particular position as well, right?
Correct.
So, we've gone down this road before, and I shared this with you Thursday night, right? It's a hard call, because we are responsible for putting together a budget with a whole mess of numbers, but I'm lousy at human resources, and I want no part of it. And this is going down the human resource part.
Not ours.
Yeah, so I defer to Don Lowe and the selectmen, and, Don, I'm not sure where we stand on this, but, we've talked around a couple of varying ideas. Last I spoke with you, I know there's still a lot up in the air, so, quite frankly, I don't know how much more of a conversation around the specific budget related to personnel we all can have until we get greater clarity from you and the selectmen on how you guys may go on this route.
Well, I don't presume to speak for the selectmen, I learned years ago I don't do that. But my own opinion, as far as how we should approach FY19, is with the retirement of Chief Menser, I sincerely believe we need a full-time, dedicated, working fire chief who's also a trained EMT, who can go out on calls if we need call, on ambulance calls as well as fire calls. We're really the only town in the area that I can think of that doesn't already have a full-time chief. We're fortunate to have had the dedication we have out of Chief Menser in the role that he's played, and Chief Stevenson before him and the other chiefs before Chief Stevenson. But, the time has come, I think, that we need a full-time dedicated fire chief. I think we need to do it in a planful way. I don't think we should rush to do it. And I know the selectmen are going to be discussing it Thursday night, so I don't want to get into
Yeah, and
a lot of
that's fine.
detail, but I'm just sharing my opinion.
Yeah,
At the 50,000 foot level, that's what I would foresee for FY19. The timing and all, obviously, is a discussion, but that would be my concept.
So for funding that, what do? Put a placeholder in, or do you hold that off in whatever fund you have that isn't appropriated? How do you do that?
It would need to be appropriated as part of this budget, however we shape FY19. And, just to put out a couple of scenarios, not lobbying for either one right now.
No, I just, how do you encumber that figure that is unknown?
We would, our human resources is already working on visioning, roughly what a suitable salary range would be for a full-time chief. So we've got that, we'll have that figure. And the other discussion point is, when would the new chief come on board? Would it be July? Would it be December? What would be the approach for that? Are we budgeting for a half-year salary, a whole year
It would be
salary?
an assumption you'd build in.
Right, we would have to build in an assumption into the budget and then manage to that budget number, whatever it is.
Right, okay.
But presumably that full-time chief, or conceivably, could be one of the two slots that John is talking about.
It could very likely be.
Yes, that's what I mean.
And that, right, I would assume that would be one of the two potential slots. And then, the other question is, again, if you're talking about a phased approach, would it be that the full-time chief would be an ad at some point in FY19 and then see how that goes for a year, and then do an ad or more than one ad in FY20? How do we phase that in too? So I think there's several things to consider here, and it would be it's a big leap, I think, a necessary leap to go to the one full-time chief. What we do for headcount beyond that, is a little fuzzier for me.
yeah.
Well, it'd also be helpful to have the new chief in there to be able to begin to define that.
Well, you would like to hear what the new chief's thoughts are. To hear, once he or she is on board,
You
and
get a closer assessment.
right, and do their own assessment. I don't know that you want to hand the entire plan to the new chief and say, here it is, this is what you got to do, as opposed to the new chief weighing in and giving their view of it.
Well, you want
Do you do a contract of a year, 3 years? What's pretty normal for that?
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but again, I think the vision would probably be, for something like that, if we're gonna do a contract, I would say probably 3 years would be normal. The first contract, I wouldn't look to go too far beyond that, especially with a new person, but I think that's a detail that's way out ahead of us.
So I threw Don Lowe a question, and he artfully said does not speak for the selectmen. So at the very least, since I have all three selectmen here, without being disrespectful, potentially burying your lead for Thursday evening.
We're hoping
You
to
guys,
reveal
yeah, you
Thursday
guys
night.
are, you're happy. I don't want to, think that I'm ignoring
You want a trailer.
Not
in
to
other
put you
words.
on the
Yes, that's
spot.
No. If the three of you said we would rather wait for Thursday, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you're not.
I think since this was not a specific agenda item for tonight's meeting, and we as a board haven't spoken about it yet, and it is an agenda item for Thursday's meeting, I think it'd be more appropriate, not necessarily to comment in any detail on this now, and allow us to have our meeting on Thursday.
And after Thursday, we'd have some preliminary
Yep.
definition of what you guys are thinking
Yep.
about.
Stan,
Yeah,
what
that-
is the agenda item on Thursday though? What does it cover?
It's just a discussion about what are we gonna do for a new chief.
Okay.
It's very broad.
Yeah, and you're right, Stan. So this was our agenda item, and it was around the budget, and this is part of the budget, but then capital items. So again, I'm at.
All we know is we don't have to spend money.
Yeah,
So, how much I can tell you.
yeah. All right, so let's switch gears. So Nanoshka, before we do that, within the fire, that budget, that's the personnel and hours, salary, weight, that's the only outstanding item, right, in the budget, I believe,
Potential
within fire.
yeah, personnel would be, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Human Resources is also looking at whether or not it'd be appropriate to reclassify the full-time firefighter EMT position based on current tasks and responsibilities. So I'm not sure of the status of that.
So I assume that's gonna cost us more money too, right, is what you're saying?
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it wouldn't go down.
Yeah, the answer's yes, it always does. All right. All right.
Like we've already made up our mind.
What's that?
It doesn't sound like we've already made up our mind. We don't have any data.
I have enough history to know
I know,
this is
so
gonna
just
go.
keep it to yourself.
I guess the flip side of that is, you're taking the selectmen's answer as a de facto budget. And I would suggest that if advisory has an opinion, they should deliver it
Oh,
before Thursday.
absolutely,
You
but
should
until
deliver
we
it
know.
before Thursday.
You think?
Yeah, well,
Because otherwise, you're setting this up so that the selectmen are gonna make the budget decision.
that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it is your budget.
I understand that. But my point is, if advisory has an opinion,
That's right.
they should reveal it before Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I've spent enough time with the chief. I said, we spent some time Thursday evening. From what I can gather, and this is simply me speaking, I have not polled advisory. I shared, Dawn's sentiments that it seems, in light of where the town of Bolton is, the demands of what has been put on, what we've asked of chiefs of the past, and in light of everything else in town, relative to other towns, it seems like we need to look at a different model. So, given the fact of what's going on with Chief Menzer retiring and the problem with day shift, to me, that seems like a logical first step. But I'm simply speaking for myself right now.
Yeah, and I think we have to look at all of this in the context of, we've just known about a number of things that are potential adds to this budget in just the recent past. Okay, we've got the 150K that the committee's potentially asking for study of 117.
Don't discount that grant that he.
Oh, no, hey,
no guarantee.
I'm all for that, but it's 150K for that.
Yeah,
We have the fact that the chief is asking for this pool of individuals to supplement during the day. We now have to look at the notion of potentially bringing in a full-time fire chief. We have, the fire department is asking for a $275,000 truck.
We don't have the school numbers yet.
Not
Not to steal your thunder.
yeah, no, it is big here.
we got at least $100,000 we know we have to spend on the leach fields for the high school. We don't even know what the number is for the district coming in our assessment. So we got all these kind of balls floating
Yeah.
around in the air, so I mean, I think we're gonna have to make some hard decisions, because
Yeah.
all this is, all that stuff is relatively new, and, so.
No, exactly, yeah. And the last Minuteman, that came in at 100,000 more than last year.
That too.
So yeah, there's no doubt, this is a big year. From, not only from a budget standpoint, if it's in the budget, it goes on year after year, but also from a capital planning, no doubt.
I had a question for Dawn. Do you know when Donna thinks she would have an approximate salary range worked up?
I think we can, I believe, because I will speak for Doug, I believe we can have it by the end of the month.
Okay, because right now, the only numbers we have are for 2 per diems at about $90,000 for FY19, which doesn't include benefits. So, I mean, I feel like...
I believe she's scheduled for the 27th.
Okay.
to come
I was
see
just
you
about
guys,
to
too.
mention, like, she's probably watching, so
I hope not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd take the opportunity to make some
But no,
discussion.
I think the 27th, I think we'll be ready for the 27th. I mean, she and I have discussed some preliminary concepts, and I think we're pretty much on the same page, so.
Yeah, okay,
But
good.
I'm sure she'll be ready for this.
So that's February 27th, and then that gives us a full month to finalize everything, this warrant gets signed end of March.
I can envision mid-March, a real roll-up-your-sleeves working session, going over all the capital requests and everything else,
Yeah,
figuring out what goes and what stays. Not to digress, but just to remind Nanachka, if it comes up later, that I think I did find us an $80,000 opportunity this week that we can remove from the budget.
all right.
Very nice.
And that, so to that, Don, before you got here, Nanachka and I were talking about things. So I need to get with Nanachka and go through, some other past warrant articles and just get an update on the budget where we are. And then that will lead us into the discussion of start looking at the total available cash to start looking at deployment of.
Have we already looked at that, the $271,000 that was appropriated for the radios and repeaters that we don't need to spend because we got that grant? Has that already been accounted for to be redeployed somewhere?
Well, we never borrowed for it, so we never,
Yes, so,
we never
Okay.
did anything with it.
that was a borrow.
All right.
Okay,
So we
so,
never did it.
so so obviously things are up in the air regarding the whole personnel area. So now let's address the bigger of the capital items. So the proposal for the new fire apparatus. So,
As we did last time, I'll have Deputy
All right.
Wilson and Firefighter Postletti
sounds good.
speak to that.
All right, guys,
Evening.
good.
More around? I was gonna go this way.
By the way, I thought your presentation was very thorough.
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize I was not able to make that meeting, but Deputy Chief Wilson provided me a copy. I had a chance to look at it. I did watch a little bit of the video. But, from the conversation that we're having with the chief last Thursday evening, a couple of when we broke from the meeting, the chief asked, what more can I do? What else can I assist in preparing for this Tuesday meeting? And, so the commentary that Joe and I and Ted provided the chief was, we just want to get a better understanding. You guys laid out a nice presentation, but I think we need to get deeper. You need to be prepared to discuss at town meeting. And what I'd like to hear now also, if possible, is, can we look towards taking an intermediary step, right? You guys proposed, and let me back up a minute. I always get a little queasy when I pretend to step in and say, I think you guys should do this, or advisory thinks you should do this, when you're the ones that are utilizing these pieces of equipment. But is there a middle ground? You got a chassis with
Yeah.
the full-blown 3-4 backs.
Yeah.
And then utilization, share with us, because I saw some call stats, right? And, specifically brush, 3%. Propane, I'll give you that, that's outside. something else related to outside fire, it all comes up to less than 10%. So
So
how do you
in
address that?
response to trying to scale back the project, if you will, we as a group discussed that in the beginning and then again after the advisory meeting last month. And the two bodies that we could do without if we had to were not a large portion of the budget. It would be the hazmat body, which is basically a skid in a van or a box on the back, doors, shelves, not a lot to it. And the other one would be the rack body, which would basically be the pickup truck body, if you will.
Yeah.
The stake body, as it's otherwise called. So those two would be the ones that we could probably skip a year, if possible.
Yeah, and when I say,
Yeah.
middle ground, I'm not
Yeah.
saying this is all you're gonna get. I'm saying,
Yeah,
can
no.
we
So-
look at this back end for this year, this one
Yeah.
for this?
So
could
again,
we-
those two would be the two that we could forego immediately. The brush body and the ice rescue / command body, those would be necessary evils, no matter what. Because that's what that truck does, that's what the role is. 8 months out of the year, again, it's the brush truck. The other 4 months, it's right now rolled into the ice rescue response. That's where the equipment is stored. That's the vehicle that rolls out on it because again, it's 4-wheel drive. But again, it has its limitations. So again, scaling back some of those bodies, it's possible. I think that as part of the project, if it really came push came to shove, I would like to shove forward and go with all of them. Have a complete set, have it do the role it needs to do that we've been planning on, and go with it.
And to address your question about utilization, it's a very hard number for us to come up with because we're trying to look back at past events and go, well, how would we quarterback this differently? Because one of the things that the gentlemen sitting to my right are very good at in the job they do is working with the resources they have and the resources around us. And if that resource is a truck we have in a different type of role or a personal vehicle or a different town's resource, we make do with what we have. For example, if we've got a bunch of people at the station, we have to go on an EMS assist because sometimes we get a patient in a compromised position or a very large patient or something like that. We roll a $500,000 fire truck down the road to do that. So one of the things with utilization that we want to be able to do with this type of piece of apparatus is that some of those, service responses, for lack of a better word, is use this kind of commercial off-the-shelf chassis. It's more efficient. It's easier to repair, stuff like that, to utilize more. So, historically, brush fires are a low percentage, but because of the way, this is at the end of the day, this is not a one-for-one replacement for Engine 4. This is a paradigm shift in the way that we're looking at our fleet strategically. So it's going to be able to fill some of those gaps that we've identified for utility transport, for kind of your, everyday response for, we need to get 4 people from here to there. Yeah, we can get 4 people from here to there right now in a big truck, but it's a bigger engine, bigger tires, more wear, a higher level of risk. Every time we go out the door, it's a calculated level of risk. The most dangerous part of our job is just, driving a personal vehicle to the station. It's a calculated level of risk. By using a lighter... Sorry?
I'm saying it's a calculated level of risk, but I'm asking about injuries in the past. Has anyone been injured? Is there the data that shows this calculated area of risk?
The calculation of the risk is you're taking, again, a much larger, much heavier vehicle and responding urgently to the call if need be. And again, that vehicle has a $500,000 fire engine has a larger tipping point or a higher center of gravity than a commercial truck that we're proposing. So, the potential for accident injury is there. No, we do not have an injury history in the department. We've been extremely lucky there as well.
So what you're also saying is that one of these things with a command module, potentially this thing could be deployed on every single...
Potentially, yeah, a large-scale incident.
Yeah.
Or one example that comes to my mind right away is during the summertime, we go up on the highway a lot for grass fires in the median. Right now, we take engine 2. Rough replacement value, let's call it $500,000 just for round to numbers. You know, and that's sending a big heavy truck that we use for all of our motor vehicle collisions. It is a second or third G piece of structure fires. It's a mutual, you know, it does a lot that we send up on the highway to extinguish a crash fire because that's what we have. That's the piece of apparatus we can use.
But it's overkill.
It's overkill. If we could send a smaller, lighter, easier to maintain piece of apparatus with 4 firefighters on board, that's less money in fuel, less
More
money in
agile.
tires, more agile. We can get it, you know, we can't take engine 2. We keep all 4 tires on the road right now because it cannot go in the median, period. You know, a smaller, lighter truck, we can get it in the median, away from the traffic. I mean,
So your guys are safer too.
our guys are safer, and it keeps the piece of apparatus. I mean, all you have to do is watch the news for a week, and there's a fire truck getting struck somewhere in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, so town has insurance.
It's very scary.
No,
But wouldn't
yeah, I'm
it
not.
be more scary to be out there against that 495 traffic with all those loonies going at 80 miles an hour in a pickup truck as opposed to a...
But you get it right on the median strip. is what-
But you're getting it off of the pavement.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, all
So
right,
that's,
that makes
that's
sense.
a plus.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you're always a moving target no matter what, and, you know, the state police can testify to that on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, it's just, it's one of those things where, and I hate to use your words against you,
Please.
but I'm going to. You know, this, you've heard to some extent how bad this year is, right? I also heard you say, we make do with what we can have, right? What we have, we can, right? So this is where I'm coming from. I know what you guys want, and I can absolutely understand, without a doubt, why you want what you want. My question is, in the grand scheme of things, can we look at some middle ground, knowing that you guys have been able to figure out a game plan, whether it's what you internally as leaders strategize with body and equipment and are utilizing other towns, you know, can we push to another year? And to what degree?
Brad,
Yep.
one question I have is when I look at capital planning data, next budget cycle, they've got a total of over $2 million. But the following year, they're at $643,000. So instead of next year, because that's even going to be a tougher year on the budget, it's more likely the following year. So my request would be hold off for 10 cycle.
Right.
I know you're saying what, but
Yeah, I know, but you're,
capital planning,
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, but so, the one thing is, you're on the phone and I'm here and I'm looking at their faces, they're already pissed off at one.
I'm streaming it live.
Oh, alright.
So the biggest element in this is,
I understand the value and the potential, we all want it. I know the whole board would vote yes, but I think it's just a matter of timing. It's tough. You know,
the biggest issue is going to be,
Just let her finish, please.
Minuteman is just tough.
the,
Sorry to interrupt you. Go, you know, you asked for middle ground and I'm waiting for that answer too. What would be the middle ground?
so the biggest issue is going to be if our current engine 4, our brush truck, right now, fails, which it's going to happen. It could be tomorrow, it could be 2 months, it could be a year. We've had information from the repair people saying that this vehicle should be removed from service because it's not dependable. It's the pump, the internal workings on the pump, the heart and the soul of a fire engine is very questionable. So
What would you use instead of that if you didn't get this?
we would use a $500,000 piece of equipment that you just recently purchased for us and run it ragged.
Yeah, okay.
So again, it's risk versus reality. Again, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And again, we could get cheaper turnout gear, cheaper air packs, cheaper this. But at the end of the day, you want a good quality piece of equipment that you're gonna depend upon and rely upon and be able to utilize it. So, the truck that we have now, it's usable today. Is it gonna be usable tomorrow? We don't know. And again, part of that is that it's harder and harder to train people on that piece of equipment because of its basic operation, which is a manual transmission. We just can't find people to drive that and teach people to drive that. Because if we teach somebody on that truck, we will be replacing it in a week and a half. Because a transmission on the ground is not gonna do anybody any good. And again, it's very difficult to train somebody on that if they don't know how to drive a standard to begin with. So, could we put off a portion of it? Yeah, and it's gonna be a couple of those minor bodies, if you will, that aren't gonna be a large chunk of it.
Did you get a total for that? What was not a large chunk sound like?
We, again, right now, we have our RFPs out there. We do not have deadline responses as of yet. That will be coming at the end of the month. But I'm gonna say, and this is only a guess, the framework was $4,000 for the skid body, the base platform. The racks are gonna be $1,200, $1,500, so there's $3,500, or $5,500. And then another $10,000 for the box one, the hazmat one. So probably 25 at best, if we were to push them off. So,
But you were talking about three,
Different, yeah.
we're 3 or 4 is what we had talked about. We had brush, ice rescue command, a hazmat, and then a stake body.
and I think what I'd like to see is, I'd like to know what the chassis is gonna cost and what each of those bodies is gonna cost. And if you're saying that brush is probably the first thing that you're gonna need, then, perhaps one compromise is get the chassis, get the brush body this year, and next year we look at another one. Because to Brad's point, I don't think we have the resources to spend $275,000 for everything. The extreme option is, you guys may have to wait a year. But, I'd like to know what, if you had to get one body, what would that be? And what is the cost of the chassis and that one body?
You need the lift on that truck.
Yes, you would need the basic truck chassis
Right.
with the hook lift attached to it.
Right.
And a body built to receive it.
I mean, I think that would be good information to have.
I don't know if we can get a hard number. When would you need that by? Because our RFPs are due back March 9th.
The warrant closes the end of March. Meaning,
Okay.
all the decisions have got to be made by capital planning,
Yeah.
by advisory, by the selectmen sign it.
Before the end of March.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
You don't have until the end of March.
Yeah, it goes, then it heads off to print, and then we're in front of the town first part of May.
Yeah.
So,
Well, which we can make a decision on town floor, because it is a warrant article, right?
there's a, you guys have a placeholder in the warrant, right?
Yeah, we did draft.
Yeah, we
one,
drafted one,
yes.
we didn't get the
Yep.
sheet.
Hang on.
Yeah, so, Don, do you want that now, or when, I presume you've been taking warrant articles, or you,
I have a placeholder on the warrant right now for
Okay.
the apparatus.
all right.
At $275,000, that's right.
So what I would say to that point is, if you haven't gotten the official, warrant article to Don, when you guys finish that,
Tonight.
Yeah, we can forward it. to
yeah,
you.
he would probably like that sooner than later. Okay. Any other questions for fire relative to the fire truck?
My only question was about the possibility of waiting a year, but you kind of addressed that, because I'm just hearing about the possibility of getting a new chief, and I guess I'd kind of want that person's view of something like this, because it is kind of a new, as you said, a new paradigm in terms of how we're acquiring things, and if this new chief hates this kind of a thing, you know, I'd like to know that. Or if he says it's absolutely the way to go, then that would be a thumb on the scale for me.
The concept of what the truck capabilities are, in terms of once the body's on it, none of that is new. It's solely the fact, the only kind of, I hate to call it revolutionary, because it's actually been in the industry quite a while. The only thing that's new to Bolton is the fact that we are, instead of buying 4 pieces of apparatus to do 4 different jobs, it's 1 truck to do 4 different
Attachments.
jobs. Exactly. So it's the capabilities of what it's able to do, that's not new to the fire service.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you've got these bodies, right? And I know at the capital planning meeting, you said one of them, like, stay outside.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to hear about experience with that. Like, I know it's supposed to stand up to the elements, but does it? Or are you actually having to replace it?
Mass Department of Fire Science, 2004, they bought their first ones. So they've had them in service for 14 years. And they use them on a daily basis for classroom materials that they transport throughout the state. Westford is how many years?
It's 2002.
And didn't you say Groton?
Groton as well.
Yeah,
So again, the one that would stay outside, that we would need to stay outside, would be built to withstand the elements. It's a van body, if you will, the back of a cargo truck sitting on a skid. So that's it's built weather tight to begin with.
Now, that was my question. What, do you have to protect these things? What do you do with them when they're not in use? During the summer, during the winter?
Yeah. So
they're standalone, self-enclosed?
Yeah. So the brush body, we would propose to put into the old fire station, which we're using right now for the storage of our light tower. And that has been recently cleaned out by DPW to give us some space in there. So again, that body, yeah, I would put in during the winter months just to keep it out of the elements. Otherwise, it's going to be on the truck and inside the station undercover. And in the off months that that body is on, the Ice Rescue Command body could live in there. It would be weather tight, but again, just keeping it out of the elements. So the van body, the hazmat body, and the snake body, they are what they are. It's a pickup truck bed, not a big pickup truck bed or a big storage compartment.
So a few years ago, and I know you were around a few years ago, I don't remember you, when we were talking about the previous fire truck. And I remember the conversation of because we always want to put you guys in a box, right? You're getting rid of this fire truck and you're replacing with this. And even back then, it's not a 1-for-1, right? Because you're going to a 4-wheel drive, and the reasoning was long, common driveways, first attack.
Yeah.
And you made a compelling case and went forward. I think what I also want to see, in light of this additional new vehicle, and it's not a 1-for-1, I presume you're carrying this strategy through the entire fleet. And how are you factoring in, assuming a yes on this, relative to the remaining fleet and what's coming down the pipe? Share with me the strategy moving forward, if you can. Meaning, you got a total number of X trucks.
Yeah.
And they're being reclassified, right? You've got this 4-wheel drive attack.
The primary attack piece role doesn't change. That is the primary attack piece. That role doesn't change. Our second due truck, our tanker, the role doesn't change. It's either giving water to the attack truck, giving water to the brush truck, giving water to the rescue truck for engine 2, which is primarily for car fires and vehicle rescues. So that role doesn't change. Engine 2, the role doesn't change. It's equipped with all the automobile electrification equipment as well as some structural fire equipment.
Okay.
So its role doesn't really change. What happens is we gain a little bit of space so that the initial truck going up on the highway, engine 2, to a hazmat call, a tanker truck that rolls over, has some equipment for that rescue, that hazmat response. This truck, the one we're proposing, with its van body, stake body, enclosed body, would have large volumes of speedy drying, booms, dikes, anything that we would need to do to contain that type of spill.
Okay.
So it can be deployed second to the highway. So the initial response, the stuff that's on engine 2 now is still there. It gets used up quickly, immediately, and is immediately followed up with a larger volume of stuff.
Okay. So are what you also saying that when this vehicle is complete, then you have a complete fleet and then it literally is a one-for-one moving forward?
I would say yes. I would say yes.
And perhaps also to, I hope this helps answer your question, a little bit of history on this piece of apparatus. When it was designed, Bolton was a very different Bolton. And
Engine 4. Yeah.
Engine 4, yes.
The current engine 4.
The current engine 4.
The 1986
The
engine
1986 International Engine 4. Where, you know, right now, it is a very large piece of apparatus. We cannot get it into the woods in a lot of places because of its size.
Yeah.
It was originally for fields and to be a backup structure fire truck. So that if you had to get up a bad driveway in the winter, this was the truck you did it with. With Engine 5, the truck that was recently replaced, that's taken over that role. So the reason it's not a one-for-one replacement isn't that, it's just that the what it was designed for, it was great at, but that role has kind of evolved and shifted through time.
Yeah.
Back in '86, a lot of us had our gear at home, responded in our own car to the scene. And again, we only needed
Somebody
a
went back to get the truck.
two-man cab. So you had to get the truck there and the people came and gathered around it. That has changed, and that's changed across the industry. People do not want, fire departments, fire services, towns do not want POVs, personal operating vehicles, going to scenes of fires. You know, they want you to go to a central place, get on a piece of apparatus and respond to that apparatus. That's every town around us and in the Commonwealth of Mass, that's happening more and more.
In the nation.
It's a
Union thing.
not a union
It's
thing,
safety, it's accountability.
It's accountability, it's.
I had to take the shot.
No, I'm not a union person, so it's not.
We know an example of
But
the
that
fire
way,
department.
if you
having
leave
a
if
call.
you leave the station with 4 people, you come back with 4 people, it's a huge safety.
Yeah, it's an accountability.
No, and that's fine, so that's helpful, because my concern was 3-4 years from now,
Another big
you guys are
engine.
here,
Yeah.
and it's this engine, and I ask you, or someone asks you the question, you're like,
I
not really
think
a one for
I
one.
think from this, if this purchase is complete, it would definitely be a one-for-one, because again, engine 1 is our backup structure fire, our second,
okay,
so that would be basically the same thing it is now. Engine 2, again, basically the same thing it is now. The tanker is a tanker, we shouldn't get rid of a tanker nowadays. We had to, we're capable
no,
of doing it
yeah.
with one.
I mean, you guys had
So,
to,
yeah.
you guys had to overcome the objection
Yep.
on engine 5
Yeah.
because you
Yeah,
were losing some water capacity, so,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, you can't
so,
go without a tanker.
no.
I
Yeah,
just had a quick data collection question. So I know Chief Menzer forwarded us a bunch of the call logs from like the past 5 years, and it looked like you guys do try to track which apparatuses go out for different calls. I think if there's a way for you to just summarize that quickly, not tonight, but going forward, because one of the things you've said is like engine 4, because it's not a year-round vehicle, it's kind of, it's not being utilized all that much, but we.
It is right now because it's taking the role, it was up until this year, taking the role of that first dude going to the house with a long crappy driveway.
Mhm.
That's not plowed. So that was responding to those primary calls in the years past. It's not this winter, it's not first due out this winter, because now we have engine 5, which has that four-wheel drive capability, can roll with a full complement of 6 men versus 2 people.
Yeah,
So-
but do you see what I'm getting at? Like, I think we wanna, you wanna make sure when we look at it that the apparatuses that we have are getting used efficiently and that like, there's not one that's getting way more wear and tear versus,
Yeah, I think that will, I think that will actually help in the overall, because again, other than the highway, engine 1 was our first 2 piece, now it's engine 5. And again, that was the one always going out first.
Yeah.
And then the tanker would typically always follow, because again, you need the water.
You need water.
So that was the, you know, the 1 and 2 of the
Don't get
parade.
as many hydrants around
So,
here.
yeah, no. If you do see one, let me know.
Anashka?
Can I, when you're done and you're ready to wrap up, just ask about 2 unspent articles since I have you guys here? I mean, this
Yeah,
would be-
we were gonna get to
Okay,
that,
all right, good.
absolutely. Joe, did you have a question?
No.
All right. Any other questions on the fire truck? All right. Last Thursday night, we were also talking about the air compressor apparatus.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, at that point, I checked out. I was just exhausted. So I remember very little of that conversation. Joe, I'm hoping you can remember more than I.
Well, I do remember, unfortunately, most of the heavy technical stuff was
Ted.
Ted.
Kirshner, yeah.
As a chemical engineer, he was
He went over to
asking
visit you guys, didn't he?
all kinds of questions, which I couldn't,
No, he may
the
have.
chief couldn't answer.
Yeah. So,
But I guess the question that came up was, according to Ted, you replaced some valves and then you had to replace them again in less than 2 years and things like that, and that just seems like a lot of money going down the tubes.
And that's basically our concern, that it's money going down the tube, as well as his inherent lack of reliability with the current system. And with the self-contained breathing apparatus that all firefighters wear is one of our most important.
Well, I know, we
safety
don't want to
So-
skimp on that.
And this compressor is used to refill the bottles,
Right.
as part of that. Between training and response on fire calls, we probably use air out of those tanks maybe about 60 times a year between training and call response. And once we deplete air out of the bottle, it's important that they get refilled as quickly as possible so that they're ready to go for the next call. So it's that system, the reliability, the availability of it is paramount. It's vitally important that that system is ready to go, ready to be used at any time. So certainly the cost of potential repairs going forward is a concern, as well as just having that system available to us, since it's so important. And we have had a repair service in, they've kind of done an evaluation of the system, and they, basically they're saying that, going forward, we'll probably have more repairs coming down the road.
and how old is the system? Jim?
It's 12 years old.
12.
And the life is 20 years usually, right?
Yes, if we replace the system, we would be expecting to get 20 years out of it.
But this one also had a 20-year life supposedly, right?
I really don't know when that system was first purchased and installed. I don't know what its expected lifetime might have been. Yeah, I guess probably around 20 years, but I really can't say that for sure.
And again, at the risk of stepping into your job, so why couldn't the main pump of that just be replaced?
That's what we're talking about. It is a pump.
Right. So, but you're asking for a whole new
It's a
system.
compressor. It's a compressor. So it's basically a electrified car engine with cylinders pushing air into bottles for storage. That is the compressor.
Now, so
That is
you're
the-
not replacing necessarily the 2 master tanks?
No, we're not replacing the
And the
tanks at all.
filtration
No.
system
No.
and all of that?
What has been proposed is that we're replacing the complete system.
Well,
Which
because of the pressure.
Which comprises of 3 main parts. There's the compressor itself. The compressor pumps air into a number of storage tanks that holds a reservoir of air. And then the third component is a fill station where the small bottles that we wear are actually attached up and they're refilled with air. If we were to replace the compressor, it's going to be a higher PSI compressor, since that's what basically the state of the art is these days. The compressor we have right now produces 4,500 PSI, which is
I remember this part.
which is
It's
what
gonna go
our-
to 65, right?
Well, 6,000
6,000.
PSI, which is basically, if you buy a compressor, that's what it's gonna be today.
All right.
Since the increase in pressure, we have to replace those storage tanks
Because
by
they can't,
default.
safely,
Right.
they can't be
Correct.
operated.
The current ones can't operate at higher pressure, as well as
The fill station.
the fill station. And the
So
fill-
you are replacing the whole system?
Yes.
All right. So just replacing the compressor is off the table because of what you just said. The storage tanks wouldn't work.
Yes.
And when does the mandate, the unfunded government mandate, come down on you guys, or effectively the town, that says you must move to these bottles at 6,000 pounds per square inch versus the ones you have right now?
Well, when we replace our current SCBA, the self-contained breathing apparatus, more than likely the new ones that will replace the current ones would
Here we
be
go.
the 6,000 pound base bottles.
Yeah.
And we would be replacing those,
13 years from now?
rough,
12 years.
10 to 15 years. So it's well within, it's before the,
By then they'll jack it up to 8, so 1,000 pounds.
The system that we have now, the bottles that we wear now are only 5 years old.
correct.
They have an 18-year service life. So,
I remember
Yeah.
those being purchased.
Are there restrictions on who operates the system?
yes.
Obviously, that you need to go through a training and process so you can operate it safely.
So how many people are sort of certified to operate it?
I mean, there's just two other, it's really a standard piece of equipment in a sense. So most people, most firefighters
Most of our
are
firefighters
trained
are
to use
trained
it.
on the operation.
It's not as though it's so specialized that,
Yeah.
it's just a select number of people.
I think one of Ted's concerns is that perhaps there was an issue with just if some of the maintenance issues arose from improper operation, but it sounds like everybody's trained to use it.
And really with the compressor itself, which is where our repairs have been, that in a sense is kind of standalone. I mean, it doesn't really there's no direct.
No human error.
Yeah,
You
it
turn a switch on?
turns on and it turns off.
Okay.
So,
So it
Yeah.
doesn't have a lubrication cycle or like I have a generator in my barn and I run it for 20 minutes every month just to keep the seals
Mhm.
going. You don't have to do that kind of thing, or does that
Well,
take
it
place?
cycles.
It cycles.
It cycles
Okay.
week to week, month to
Yeah.
month.
So why, and maybe I missed it, so I apologize, guys. Why couldn't you go get the same pressure compressor that you're dealing with right now? And that way you could maintain those same storage tanks and and you wouldn't have to replace the entire system, and you would only be replacing the compressor, which seems to be the issue.
I don't know what the availability of, the 4,500 PSI type compressor is these days. I honestly haven't investigated that, so I'm not sure.
That might
What
make
they-
sense, at least figure that out.
I do know when they were doing the initial investigation, that some of the repair / service people were, when just asked if you had to replace this, what would you think? And they said, well, one, your space is very small. So where we put it, when they rebuilt the station, it is a very small location, so I don't know size-wise.
So would a bigger compressor fit there?
Well, the 6,000 PSI compressor
Actually
isn't
smaller.
really physically bigger.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's not bigger.
But to that point, I would assume if this thing is 12 years old and it's cranking out 4,000 or 4,500 PSI, I would have to venture to guess a new 4,500 PSI compressor would probably be smaller. I mean, this damn thing gets smaller every year, right? So,
And
Would
then
it-
bigger.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the tank, and the tank, and let me just back up one more. The tanks that you guys have, 5 years old, good for 18,
The ones we were on our back, yes.
yes. Those obviously accept 4,500 pounds. They're capable of accepting 6?
4,500 pounds.
4,500.
Those are what they're rated for.
Okay.
That's what they're purchased as.
So now you fully, now that begs the question, why the hell are we talking 6,000 then?
Is cubic feet of storage. So we have 4 storage bottles in that the compressor fills to 4,500 pounds right now.
Okay,
You start filling the bottles off of our backs. You immediately drop the first tank below 4,500 pounds.
it should kick on the compressor.
Yep. You're trying to fill the bottles relatively quickly. The 4,500 pounds gets a long time to get there. So we could have people stay and pay them to sit there and fill these just off the compressor. It'll take a long time to do that, or you fill them off the storage tank. And again, the first one, you get 4,500 PSI in the storage bottle on the truck. The second one, you'll probably get 4,500. The third one, 4,400. The fourth one, maybe 4,400, maybe 43. So your pressures continually go down because, again, you're taking the volume, the pressure off of those tanks. With a 6,000 pound PSI rated system, you have more cubic feet in that same space. So you're starting out with 6,000 pounds, you're only using 4,500.
Okay,
Again and again and again, until you get to that 4,500 point.
but it's still but I'm still not, why wouldn't, once that pressure tank drops below a certain level, why wouldn't it kick on the compressor?
It will, but again, it's going to take a time period to get from 44 up to 45 on a bottle that we wear on our back. So,
So the question is, what's the cost of someone standing there waiting for the thing to charge versus buying a whole new machine? My initial reaction is it's a lot cheaper to have someone standing there.
Well,
And if
Could
someone wants to show me different, I'll listen, but
yeah,
I'm gonna wanna see some numbers for that.
and Chief, when you're the analysis that, the example that you're giving me, I know that, it's like
Get you
every
too, huh?
friggin' night. The analysis that you're saying is, I mean, the example is trying to get these things back on the truck.
yeah.
But I would hope it's
Okay,
being done,
can we-
the things are like.
Let's do it this way, let's do this way. You have a storage container of water in your house. It is 40 gallons.
Yeah,
Okay? You have 10 buckets that you want to fill. Each of those buckets is 40 gallons. How many are you going to fill? 1. So, and then you have your pump that's refilling the storage container.
yeah.
So it's going to take you a while to refill that storage container, to fill the second bucket, to fill the third bucket. So the storage volumes
Yeah,
are
no,
there.
Okay,
So what is added to that is pressure. We're taking a compressed gas. Compressed gas at a higher pressure, more volume. So we have 4,500 pounds, 100 cubic feet. At the same storage volume, at 6,500 pounds, we have 120 cubic feet. Those are not, I don't know if those are the true numbers, I'm
Yeah.
using it as an analogy. So again, we have 120 versus 100.
and I can understand, I can follow that rationale on why you want to get those tanks filled up faster. If you're also saying to me, every single time we go out the door, we don't have enough tanks full. And before we get on out the door to get to wherever, we got to get these things full. My expectation is they're already full. And whenever you go out, you're not having to come back and refill.
Currently, we have, the volume of tanks that we have is 1 for every seat position for firefighters and a spare. So we come back from my call, we've utilized 12 of these tanks. We have 2 spares at the moment in the compressor room, 2 single bottles.
Yeah.
So we have to fill 10 to get everything back into service. to be
Okay.
ready for the next call, which can
And
be,
are you mandated to have those filled the minute you get back to the station? Or can
I
you,
am mandating the staff to fill those before they go away.
Okay.
And so everything is ready to go for the next
because
call.
literally 2
The
hours
next
later.
call could be 5 minutes, it could be 2 hours.
So it's not
could be
like,
2 days.
screw it, the full-time day guy can do this tomorrow.
No, definitely not.
No, no. The trucks have to be put back into service before the staff leaves.
Can
Not
we
sure.
at least get a price of a compressor that's 4,500, a like-to-like replacement, just so advisory has an
Right.
idea of what that would cost versus the whole new system, just.
We'll certainly investigate
All right.
that.
I was just gonna echo,
Okay.
let's even see if it's even available.
Right, I mean, I don't know.
If there's something available, let's look at the option. And if not, because I believe all the new tanks that you wear on your back are all rated at 6,000 PSI, is that correct?
No, 45.
No, they're rated at 45.
No. If you buy new today,
No, they're still rated at 45.
they're still rated at 45. Okay.
There are no 6,000 PSI tanks,
Okay.
to my knowledge.
Okay.
Between the two major vendors.
Okay.
There are probably manufacturers out there that have them.
Okay, so it's still 45, okay.
Yeah.
And you can still operate with the 4,500 tanks.
We have to operate
Yeah.
at 45.
Yeah, if we can just find out if that's available.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, because then we're having a lot of conversation about this, and if it's not available, then it's a moot point.
yeah. But even to that point, why 6,000? Why not go 10? You get those things filled up even faster.
They don't currently make them, well, they may, but.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand the
You know,
rationale.
those bodies that goes on the back of the
Yeah,
truck?
exactly. So, the chief and deputy brought
Jack bill.
up volume and pressure, you also have to bring in temperature, which adds a whole nother element, 'cause you can only squeeze air into these things so quick.
Yeah, so.
Alright, so going over and above is not necessarily the answer. I'm just trying to make sure I understand all the rationale.
There's some
Alright.
limits that we're working within.
Alright,
Do they have rentals for this kind of stuff? Rentals for everything else.
Robin's, yeah.
No.
They don't have rentals, but they certainly, there probably are, you know,
You lease it?
lease-to-own type
a
of.
bike.
Free on.
Alright.
I mean, we,
Go ahead, County, I'm sorry.
leasing was an option for everything else. I just wondered if that's an option for something like this.
I know that's been discussed with some of the suppliers that we've been working with, and yes, they do, some of them do offer that, a lease-to-own type of program.
Alright, so your takeaway is, Chief, either you or you will work on getting a number for a brand-new 4,500 compressor. Who's gonna take that
I'll
responsibility?
take that.
Okay. Alright, any other questions from advisory? Guys, thank you very much.
Unspent
Chief-
articles.
Oh, yeah, and I said, I was gonna
I
get
know.
to it, alright.
What
So-
do we have for a budget?
So fire engine 1 repairs, that was approved in May of 16 and nothing has been spent.
And engine one is scheduled to go out for those repairs on the 26th.
Excellent, all right. And then whatever's left in the fire apparatus, there's like 6,400.
For the engine 5 purchase, the big purchase that still is left to do is, we're working with the Schuylkill Valley Regional Dispatch on trying to get some grant money to purchase some, basically, laptops or tablets to go into the apparatus. And hopefully we can get money through grants that they have available to them. If not, then a large chunk of that remaining money will be spent on that. There still is some additional hose and things that we have to do, we have to purchase, so.
All right, that's not the answer I wanted, but that, but I'd say, it is what it is.
And I'll leave on this, guys, so regardless of this fire truck this year, next year, whatever the deal is, and I heard you guys are working on an RFP already,
Yes.
so that's good.
Yeah.
Because I was thoroughly not happy with the time frame on the last one, so I'm very much looking forward to when this is approved at some point in the future, you guys are on top of it, and this is a quick turnaround, right? Okay.
We've given, we've given our vendors an RFP 180 days.
It's a much simpler truck to
Yes.
spec.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, guys, thank you very much. Chief, especially, I know you've put a lot of time in these past couple nights, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, thank you.
Thank
All right, Connie, we're just gonna talk boring advisory stuff, so I assume we wanna get back to, party.
That'd be great, thank you.
Party down there.
Yeah, we got it all laid out, so I just need to drop it in.
All right, have a good night.
Do you remember what time we said before? Was that noon time?
I'm sorry?
It is,
Alliteration right there.
All right.
That's an excellent question. No, it was noon time.
So,
No, because you said that.
so Nanashka, I will definitely hook up with you, and let's, you're welcome to come up here. I think we're gonna
Go over this.
We're gonna talk about the annual statement, is that?
Sure.
Do you need me?
Ryan, I found some of the edits I made, I had some more, but
I don't think we need you for the advisory statement.
That's the second.
I just wanted to grab you before you left, so I will work on hooking up with you, because I definitely, I wanna get up to speed where you are, because I immediately felt bad asking Joe when you were already, you had already spoken to
and
him.
then the other thing is,
Oh, yeah. Well, I sent emails to all the department heads
Yeah.
asking, can I have your
Well,
money?
we're gonna talk about
And
it.
so I'm waiting for.
I'll just tell you.
So that was my opportunity to get that, but, yeah. So Joe's working on a whole, he's my major, he's got a whole list of stuff,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
so I've heard from fire now, I've heard from police, you saw that conservation, is getting back from
Right.
36, which is
Yes.
awesome. So Joe's is the big,
Yeah,
that's the big. Marty I talked to, there's nothing there. But the big ones,
yeah.
like there's some extra money from, I think, the backhoe.
No, exactly, absolutely. So, all right, I will hook up with you. I don't think we need you. I don't want to keep you here any
Okay.
longer than you have to be, so. Yeah, so this was my game plan to go over the annual statement. But at the same time, I was not here the past couple weeks, so, did you guys have a different game plan on advisory business?
We just had 3 sets of minutes that I wanted to just like formally say, I think everybody has approved them either at our last meeting or by email, so.
Did you talk about dispatch? Was that on the agenda?
It is, isn't it?
I thought I saw that on the agenda.
It is on the agenda, but
Yeah.
do we have any different numbers?
Yes,
Oh,
170,000.
What account number is that?
299. Yep, so you guys can just approve that.
and that was an uncertain number?
Yeah, we
I
were
take
just
it?
waiting to hear, it had just been level funded because we didn't have a number yet.
Okay, so what is it, 170,000?
Yep. So I don't know if that's in your, I don't know.
So I'm gonna play the role of Ted Kirshner this evening and say, that sounds like a very round number, and I don't like round numbers. Have we all heard Ted say that?
Yes.
I'm making fun of
I
Ted,
don't
but
disagree with you.
and I don't either.
actually thought the same thing.
No.
It's 170,000.
Even.
Okay.
I will confirm with Don,
Okay,
but yeah, just that's all in.
all right.
So I don't know if you want me to wait. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you know what, let's just wait. I mean, these guys will be back. It'll allow you to absolutely confirm the number.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
It's gonna be.
whatever the,
Whatever
one,
it is, it is.
yeah,
It
one,
is.
whatever the number, exactly. So,
Right, and it would take you 2 minutes to approve it whenever it does.
that's right.
come
So,
in anyway.
yeah, and I would
So there's
rather,
nothing I need to change on this for next time, right? There's no new, do you have the 170 in there?
no, I have an old one,
I have
because
157,472, but we said that was just a placeholder.
and this is what I want to talk to you about. I know I don't have the most recent one. You may have sent it electronically.
So I
or-
usually send it to Linda to send to you guys.
Yeah,
Exactly.
she did send something, I didn't print it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's been sending them.
All
Yeah,
right.
and, because I think mine is, this is definitely old, because I've missed the past couple weeks anyway.
So my question is, should I add that $150,000 to, because I put everything in here, because you have to have it in, just until you guys start voting on stuff. Just worst case scenario. I feel like I should put it in.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes
so.
sense.
And I'll confirm it with Don again about taking that 80 out. So, that was-
Yeah, so, and you're referring to the 150,
For the road.
for the road
Master
thing?
plan, master road plan.
All right. So I posed the question separately, to a couple of folks on advisory, and I posed the question, and I'm not sure what the answer is, because I wanted to get all of your opinions. One, I know that we formally, as advisory, voted on a couple of policies, if you will, and I realize I still need to socialize that with Dawn and make sure that it goes on advisory. To the selectmen. One was, a hard and fast on cutoffs of, budget and capital planning items.
Yep.
And then the other was, the clawbacks, if you will, on,
The 2-year clawback?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the game plan of like, show us a definitive, game plan within the first year, just.
I would definitely get those in front of the selectmen.
So my question for advisory is the capital roads. I mean, do we hold hard and fast? They're coming to us now with this request.
I had originally said, yes, we should hold them hard and fast, but in all fairness to them, they were operating almost in a vacuum. We've talked about this before, the lack of communication. I was in the selectmen's meeting when they were talking about this,
It was kind of a quick.
and it was like, advisory, what's that? No, they've been working very hard on this, but they haven't really been thinking in the terms that in the future, we hope every part of town government would.
Yeah, and even, that's exactly why I was bringing this up and why I even internally had a question, because I know for a fact that I would take a more hardened position if
If you had a
that was-
deadline that was clear to.
No, if
Yeah.
if that was the chief of police.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that-
the department.
that
They
is the
didn't-
department
Well, these are
head.
volunteer
Yeah.
board members.
Exactly.
And they honestly didn't know.
And so that's why I had an internal
Right,
question.
and I think with any policy, there's always exceptions to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always
But
gonna,
the size of this exception is pretty intimidating. I mean,
Yes.
this is a tough year.
It is a tough year. By the same token, I think even if we don't get it approved this year, I think it's important to get it in
Yes.
front of town meeting.
Exactly.
Because that was such a fractious issue.
Right, and we need, they promised over and over again that community outreach would be part of this whole thing.
And we got- yeah, and-
Whichever engineering firm gets the
And it's
RFP.
all built in, I think,
Right.
and I think it makes sense, even if we vote it down or defer it to another year,
Yes.
to make it clear that this isn't something that has just,
Oh, no, they've been working hard on this.
yeah. Have those guys been involved in town stuff before? I didn't recognize.
I don't
them.
recognize
So-
any.
And I think that's
Well,
also,
capital planners.
Yeah, Chris is on capital planning.
Oh, that's right, of course.
I also think it's healthy to get different views on a fractious issue.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
All right.
So you
So,
heard from the two Main Street people.
Well, no, I'm just,
Any other-
In my opinion, I don't know.
I'm not gonna go there, but I think the point is that
No,
it's gotta
it's-
get through it.
Absolutely. I agree.
Well, it'd be nice if we could get a grant and have it paid for.
Yeah.
That would be nice too.
Or maybe you could write an article that says, if we don't get the grant, we don't do it.
You crowdfund it.
I don't know.
yeah,
Well, it's gotta be done at some point, it really has to be.
I'm sorry?
I think
That
that's
is the-
64 million.
We're talking about trying to put things, to plan ahead and for sound management. And this is an attempt at really planning.
But I also think it says, we are now taking ownership of this and we are going to pay millions and millions of dollars to fix these roads. This is what you're saying by taking on this master plan.
Well, we don't commit to fixing all
No, but
all
this
the
is,
things.
why do
Look
it?
at the
Why do the
high
plan if you're not gonna do any work?
Because you've got a shitty mess out on Main Street.
But that's what I'm saying. But you're going to do the work. That's
Okay,
rats.
well, it's
that-
gotta be done, and it's.
Well, that's what I mean, but, well, I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's gonna be the contentious part of that at town
And this is
meeting.
it, if I am sitting here and I'm confused, and granted, it's been a long day, but I feel as though I'm on top of this stuff. And if I'm having a hard time following what they're saying and where it fits in, that's why I'm like, I need a
I think they should
decision
just
tree.
stop
Nate-
talking about complete streets. Because just, to your point, it's, when you go to town meeting, you just say, we want a master plan to know how to fix our road. That's, I mean, keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Nobody needs to really
Because
know.
complete streets is a separate thing.
Exactly,
entirely.
so I think them conflating the two
And it's a
is
vehicle to
confusing.
get there, but it doesn't need town man, it does not, we don't pay for
No,
it.
no, so it doesn't even, we want to have a master plan that tells us the priorities to fix 117.
But it's
And I
all,
think
it's like,
that's pretty much what they're looking for, right?
here's what
Boil it down.
150 does. This 150 gets us this.
Gets you a plan.
And then we
And
can
then-
make choices as we go forward.
And then this, depending upon the choices that we choose, costs us this, right?
Although, from what I understand, there's a potential of grant money for some of that.
True.
Maybe.
The town may say, I don't want to deal with this, therefore we don't need this, therefore no.
Right, but that's what I'm saying,
Right.
if you never want to spend any money, then what's the point of doing the study in the first place? And
Yeah.
that's where I think people are gonna fall into these camps at town meeting, like, I didn't want this to start, I don't want to pay the 150, sorry, we could have had the state do it for free. Or you're gonna have the people who say, we need to fix the streets, this is, there's gonna be two camps.
Exactly.
I think it's gonna stay
Yeah, it's
fresh.
not going to be this rosy
No,
rainbow that you're thinking, because we got new guys, leading this charge.
No, but I think that we've got to move
people
beyond
have very strong
purchases.
opinions about
I know, we're gonna move beyond
that.
that.
But anyway.
But anyway,
Um,
so I'll put in that 150, I'll ask Don about the 80.
And you're going to ask, just, is it exactly spot on 170?
Right.
Yeah. And so the good news is we've got Donna Madden coming in, she's gonna give us a little bit of update, and those are some big numbers,
Can you
right?
do me a favor on that point?
The health insurance?
No. Can you ask Donna whether she's gonna
She's
talk-
listening right now, just ask, hey Donna.
Whether she's gonna be talking to us about Parks and Rec.
I don't believe so, but I will ask her.
Okay.
I know she met with Karen.
And will
so-
will she have anything to say about the new fire chief, or is that? Well,
I think so.
Yeah, so she'll be talking salary, or her and Don will, or at least
Right.
Yeah.
have, she'll be talking health insurance, she'll be talking the human resource position, and I think the wage and compensation study. So she'll be.
Yeah, it's
There's a
gonna be-
lot.
Yeah.
Now, are you meeting next week or no?
That was what I was gonna also talk about. I think the game plan is, we were gonna take a pause, because there is a gap in the
Right,
sense
there's not
that
much, I don't
we
think.
had
Kind
these
of
guys
waiting for
in.
numbers.
Waiting numbers, we know we've got Donna lined up.
I wish we had the school earlier. It would drive so much of what we do.
Yes, I
You know? I mean, really, it's like, we have it in at 4%, what if it comes in at 4.5? That just, you
Is there
know,
any
I
way to
mean,
influence that, or is it always the way it is?
so they have to vote by March 15th.
Okay.
And so that's when they vote?
Yep, exactly. I mean, we'll probably know before then unofficially, but it's still, I mean, that's a
Have you
huge
been to
budget.
any of your
I
workshops?
did want to mention that the engineering folks that are leading the charge on this leach field issue are
Yeah.
coming back to present to the school committee at the end of February.
Oh,
So there might be some developments on that end of things.
maybe we can push it off,
Um,
buy some time. And I mean, either way, we're gonna have to pay for it, whether it's this year or the next.
Yeah.
But I'll be curious, like, are they gonna borrow for it? Are they gonna put it in their assessment? I don't know if they've determined that. Because that's not in this number. And it's not anywhere. Anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to put that, because really, we're under, we're not really looking at the rate.
Yeah, can you,
I mean, maybe I just drop 100 grand and, I don't know,
yeah,
add it to
so
the assessment.
I
Just as a
don't necessarily know if I like that idea.
I know.
Because I think that,
I mean, I would hope it'd be rolled into our number.
yeah, I know, but I want to kind of see it as a separate number, that way.
Like, it's probably not gonna be a warrant article for us.
I think that they were trying to puzzle that out.
Right, how
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
I don't think they know yet.
yeah, I don't think they.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be a good meeting to
Right.
at least watch.
if you're school finance, right, and you've got this, whatever it is,
Unfunded mandate.
$50 million school budget, right? 300,000 up against 40 million.
Small percentage.
Yeah, I mean, it's snowflake off an iceberg, right? But at the same time, if you're, just like what we're trying to do, if we're trying to manage that budget and have insight into everything, I want to have this 300,000
Well, it could be like the track.
off.
Remember they had that separate, like you see that in the budget item,
Yeah.
they had like moving part.
I would want it
track,
out
the turf.
so that I could say, here's where it is, it's over
This is our
here.
standard assessment.
Exactly. So I'm hoping they'll do that, I guess.
Right.
All right, so those, so are you guys okay with not meeting
I'm
next?
okay with next.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't want to meet tonight?
Well, I lost my keys, it wasn't intentional.
I'm away.
Convenient, perhaps.
I mean,
Could've
you got,
walked
I could have walked,
you're,
yeah.
I know, you were flanked, I was
Yeah,
giving
Jonathan was here.
Jonathan and Joe grief,
Yeah.
like, you don't even check in with your neighbor, like, some
She needed
lousy,
a ride.
commuting, right in that
I
little
know.
enclave
Well,
there.
at night, I'm afraid to
I don't
walk
blame
in
you. I
the
wouldn't
dark.
walk.
No.
I do.
But you got the.
I know, I was
got-
gonna
got
say, do you have a
headlamp.
headlamp or?
No, I don't, I didn't bring it today. I
Oh,
usually
yeah.
have this flashing,
That's a good idea.
I walk, but yeah, I'm always,
Well, I'm on the sidewalk.
always,
I know.
right now,
except that
it's
one of
not
the
cleared.
one of the retaining walls is collapsing.
Oh, and are they icy too?
No, not now, the ice is gone. I mean, the sidewalks are pretty terrible, but when
Yeah.
you're walking this way, you're walking into the traffic, so that even having a
It's
light.
hard to drive
doesn't-
and nowhere to turn in with the traffic this tight.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about
Yes.
we'll let you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't,
Thank you.
yeah,
thank you.
have a good
I
night.
will see you on the 27th,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so call me if you want to talk about any capital or whatever.
Yeah, I will be in communication with you.
Okay.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Um,
Bye.
so let's talk a little bit about the statement. I had an opportunity to read through it. I am absolutely okay as is. There was just one question I had, and you went into it a little bit, Brian, about kind of what we had to face, in this particular year. And I don't know, yeah, exactly, in the previous year. And I don't know how this stacks up or if it should, but I guess 50 years from now, would we want someone to look at this and go, holy cow, 2017 was a crazy year because of this, and this? Like, how...
Oh, I see what you're saying, like in terms of the 2.62% over the previous year.
Yeah, or like, well, the advisory committee was really tasked with having to deal with this particular issue, and again, maybe it's not the place for it, and maybe it's never been in a previous advisory statement, and not that it couldn't be in the future, or do we want consistency? I'm just throwing it out there, right?
What's the pro and what's the con? What's the con?
Well, the con would be, we collectively have to give more feedback to Brian to change this, or, because otherwise, I'm okay
Yeah, I mean,
exactly as it is.
What you suggest could be like 3 bullets, whatever the outstanding.
Yeah, that's a way to do it, that could be.
The budget was 2.62% above, driven mostly by increases in education, public spending. Well, you said that,
Well,
but you
put
could
that in
you
bullet.
could have done it as bullets.
No, exactly, I mean, that was clearly, and that's where
It's
I'm
in
like,
there.
so, it is in
For
there.
the format.
So, well, it's also maybe it's like, maybe it doesn't matter, but, you know, this is consistent with what we've been seeing in the past several years, because collectively, governments have, you know, constricted, and they're putting more and more pressure on local, I don't know.
That's all-
And again,
certainly that's all
maybe it
true.
doesn't matter, and maybe it's always been like that since the dawn of time, and so 50 years from now, or whatever,
But that certainly puts more and more constraint on our town management budget.
Well,
Right.
to Brad's point, I guess what I was thinking is I actually feel like for the fiscal year that we're currently dealing with, I imagine our 2018 report to be significantly different than this one, because I think over the past year, we as a committee have instituted a lot of changes in the way we've done things. So I think we'll actually be able to enumerate that in a way that we necessarily, like, I don't want to go back and pretend we did certain things that we didn't. The fact is, the town budget only went up 0.6%. And the actual 2.62 is because, as usual, like, it's always, the education budget is what pushes our overall increase. And that's always been the trend. But I feel like we hit that every year in our advisory statement in the warrant. I didn't know that I don't know that we want to, I can certainly add something in there, but the fact is our overall budget went up 2.62%, but of that, really only 0.6% was town side increases.
There were two things, and I did some edits to Brian. So two things, this is a new member, that I think it's important for us to somehow highlight the way we work. From what I gather, and I may be completely out of left hand, because I'm a newbie on the block, but we've developed a closer relationship with certain departments that, you know, the visits to the DPW, the visits to some of the higher, you know, the higher funded, gave us a better understanding, as well as a stronger sense of collaboration, right? We want them to be successful, but we want them to be fiscally responsible, and that, you know, we can't do that unless we understand their challenges, their successes, and their goals.
That's where Brian is talking about next year. We're going to be able to talk about how we got through like 80% of the budget before whenever.
So those, you know, and those will be operational efficiencies that we've been able to set up with our friends in the town offices. But this year, I mean, from my sense, I mean, you start out with liaisons, and then this year we went to see certain departments and really unpack their budget in a far more.
well, it was definitely a more proactive approach.
And it was more educational for us, as well as educational for them. I mean, I certainly felt that with the one, you know, the DPW, and then I went to the school budget presentation, which was interesting.
Yep.
I think they could have cut their catering budget by about 75%. Did you see the waste in there?
No.
But anyway, I really think there are things that we can portend in terms of we've begun to adopt this, and this. And we want the departments to be successful, right?
Mhm.
But we also want to understand where there are opportunities to, you know, provide more value for less dollars, basically. I mean, we need to start talking about value, the value of these departments to our operation. You know, they're not trying to cheat us, they're trying to deliver quality.
No, exactly. I
You
mean,
know?
this is why it's always a fine line of I am hesitant to jump in and tell you how I think you should construct your fire truck, right? So I'm trying to remain at the financial level,
Right.
but it's hard. I mean, these guys, this is what they do.
Well, they do, and they do a hell of a lot of research. They go over to fire safety people. So we're not as au courant with what's the current technology. But by visiting with them and maybe joining them when they went over to Groton, we would have a different point of view. And I think if we do, it's a time commitment, but I think if we do that for our major departments, we're in a much better position to understand what they're, and in a much better position to push back.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to frame what I'm trying to get across, and again, I'm not saying we should do it, or if this is even the right place. So 2017, right, a lot of time and energy was spent on determining the town square, right? And it passed. And so maybe there's a statement in there, so, oh wow, back in 2017,
Yeah.
the town voted on the town square. Or, 2018, a very, heated debate was, Camp Virginia. The town, or it was actually the end of 17, but it was in fiscal 18, right? The town voted, and again, this is ultimately captured, the annual report, I think, shows so it's ultimately captured in so someone could go back and look, oh yeah, the town voted no. It I guess where I'm saying is advisory has the ability, to cut across all these departments to say, it was one, a very, heated debate on do we not. The town voted no, and it also just so happens in 18, the town was faced with some significant capital items. Not, holy cow, thank God we said no. I'm not looking for commentary, but it's just adds perspective. And again,
Well, it's also
maybe-
a demonstration.
maybe
It's
someone-
challenging trying to get a budget together when there were so many needs, wants, and desires.
exactly.
Balanced by, but I think what, and again, I'm a newbie, but what I've been impressed with is the increasing conversation with the departments. And it's more collaborative. You're not just cutting their feet out from under them. You're really thinking, what is it you really need?
No, yeah, and I mean, I think we've definitely upped the ante, but I'll say that, it has taken place in the past.
Yeah.
I think there is more structure.
Yeah,
and
well, and I think the
there's
structure
more-
is important.
There's more
Yes.
focus.
Well,
this-
we're working toward best practices, and
Yeah.
we've spelled things out, we sent out,
You want to mention that in the report, that we're,
So again, Brian, to Ann's point, I almost said Connie, because it's like, I immediately go here and it's Connie. Yeah, I know. To Ann's point, the con would be, it requires more work. I'm honestly okay the way it is. And again, I don't know if people 25, 50 years from now are even gonna read it, or who cares?
Some scholar might do a PhD on,
Yeah.
it.
So I don't know, I mean,
But it-
is there like relevant points that added to the budget complexity that could be mentioned and might be a cool tidbit from a historical
I think
perspective
that's
in the
fair.
future?
I think that's a
Yeah.
really fair question.
but the
So-
complexity has also required us to basically, to make more of an investment and understand what they're trying to do. And understanding where their pinch points are. And pushing for their priorities. And not dismissing them out of hand. You gotta look at all their priorities and then figure out which ones we can work with and which ones we can't, it's my sense.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, and I think the best example was this evening with the fire truck.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a very compelling, they are on the side of, we need it now and we need everything. And we're sitting here going, help us find some middle ground, right? Given,
I love Connie. How about 2020?
so that was the perfect example. Like, it is,
And I think also the timing of the potential new fire chief comes in with a different perspective and a different, sort of experience. And it'll be a different recommendation, or it may reinforce what they,
I would like to see a more formal fire department budget. I mean, I don't have one in here.
yeah, we've,
Did they not submit one?
yeah, we had one somewhere. I mean, I've
Yeah, we
lost
did.
all organizations.
That's right.
I guess
I've lost mine.
I don't.
no, you're right. The submission was late, Joe.
Right.
They came in on the first night, and I think
Right.
upon their arrival, they delivered one to us.
Huh?
So it would probably be a
Yeah,
loose
that might
leaf,
have been a day
if
that
I
you-
remember correctly.
I thought I had all those, but anyway.
But I'm pretty and this is part of the conversation that I'm gonna get with Ninotchka is,
Yeah, there needs to be better
you know,
discipline.
I'm working off of
Well, you're working up a new,
a January 11th.
because I finally sat down and spent
Yeah.
probably a whole day, 3-hole punching them and organizing them. And I
Yes.
couldn't find a full budget sheet for the fire department, but I
Well, the
made
fire
it.
part was missing at the time that we
Right.
got the binders in.
Yeah, so they definitely walked in and gave us one.
Okay.
But at the same time, you know, and this is why I want to get with the Notchka is, you know, I want to go through this whole budget with her.
Sure.
And when the Notchka and I finish, and you guys get copies, everything will be in there based upon what we've covered today. To your point, it won't be a full fire budget, because it's still gonna be a big hole
Right.
of what do we do with personnel, and what's that number?
Exactly.
So,
Okay.
but it will at least be reflected,
Mhm.
so.
If I'm not being too pretentious that I can do it, could I join you with that? Because I'd just like to understand this better. With meetings in Oshkosh.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a call.
Oh, okay.
I can't do anything face to face with her.
But it's just one of those things I need to understand the lingo, and I need to understand it better, I think.
So, to get back to this,
Well, what I was gonna say is,
what do we want, what,
I did receive a couple thoughts from Ted by email. He's not here tonight.
right?
So maybe the best thing would be, I'm happy to tweak this a little bit and send out another version probably tomorrow night. It might be late tomorrow night.
I think that's fine, because we're gonna push next week.
But I think Linda said she needs this by Friday.
Ooh.
So if I send it to you guys late Wednesday night, I think you could probably just let me know if you're okay with it. And
Okay.
then I'll just copy everyone when I send the final version to Linda.
Okay, because I'm going out of town. Well, actually, I have to get on a flight at 5 in the morning out of Providence on Saturday, so.
Oh, it'll be done
It'll
before.
be done.
Yeah.
That's right, there is a timing issue.
Yes.
I knew, and this
You're
is
right.
why, I knew this was coming up, and that's why I said to Linda, I'm like, Linda, not that I want to build a budget for someone who's going to be delivering an agenda for a meeting that I'm not going to be part of, but I know we've got to start working on this.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. So I'm glad, yeah, so that works for me. You know,
Sure.
if you can crank this around with some updates, I know I can turn it around back to you by Friday.
Yeah,
And to that point, guys, so if we're not gonna meet, so are we all in agreement that we will not meet next Tuesday? And we'll reconvene on February 27th?
Sure.
Sure, okay.
that's fine.
What I would say is, if you're bored and you have absolutely nothing to do, if you want to take a look at last year's PowerPoint presentation delivered at town meeting, you know, the feedback, if you guys remember the postmortem roundtable discussion after last year's advisory meeting, town meeting was, you know, we want to continue to move the bar with that presentation. We made some changes to it last year. We added some slides. We got rid of previous slides. So nothing is set in stone. I mean, there's obviously certain information that, you know, probably we need to convey always. It doesn't mean that we have to always convey it in the same manner. And if there's something that you think should be added to that presentation, let's start thinking about that now, because,
Can you have that sent to me? I don't.
yeah, I'll have,
Send it to everybody.
yeah. So,
And I think it's important to really understand and clarify what the specific objective of that PowerPoint is. what do you want people to walk away with, right? Because sometimes it's just, prose on a slide, and it doesn't.
And there are graphics
Substantiate
that
the point.
sometimes are,
Yeah.
we've had a lot of trouble wrestling with the graphics. I don't know if you have any better ideas on how to show
The visuals, yeah.
The visuals.
But, I've done a lot, you've done a lot of PowerPoints and days, and sometimes the more you have on it, the more useless it is.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt, there's been some graphics and some slides that were like, they've been a holdover from previous administrations, and at the point in time that they were used, I felt as though they were useful.
Yeah, but
I think we've kind of moved
aged
on.
out, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is something that should always change. But to me, the objective of that presentation is to, as educational and easy to understand manner as possible, kind of give a Cliff Note version of what the hell we've done for the past, 5 months to get us to this night.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the state of the state. Like,
Yeah.
here's what we're going to be talking about for the next, 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And I think, it's been done pretty well in past years, but can it always get improved upon? Absolutely.
Yeah, well, let me take,
Yeah, so I'll have Linda send out last year's presentation, and if I can find, I know I have a lot of previous years'
Yeah.
presentations, even if
Yeah.
you want to get a sense of a historical look,
Yeah.
but I also feel they may be on the town website,
I'll look,
or,
let me look, and then I'll,
because I think so
yeah,
first of all, if they're not, I feel as though they should be, right?
yeah.
But I get the sense, I think that whole package is on the town website, like the materials from a town
Well,
meeting.
yeah, let me, we can all take a look, and if they're there,
Yeah.
we're good. But it's just, and I think the other conversation, I was talking a little bit to Brian about it, is that, we have very challenging, residents who are concerned. There's a whole bunch of people who don't want to spend anything, people who need to spend more, and I think we need to start supporting the concept of the value of what you get.
Right.
It's not just take. We're talking about quality of life, we're talking about
Well,
quality of schools.
when you look at the guidelines that we got from the Northborough Fellow, they talk about, the goals of a municipal government are basically to produce your product, if you're thinking of yourself as a business, is not to earn a profit, but it's to enhance the quality of life of the citizens as efficiently as you can do. I mean, there are, if we had huge potholes in the middle of Main Street, whether people wanted to or not, we'd have to fix them.
Yeah.
I don't know how to articulate that.
Yeah, and of course, one of my personal favorites is getting something to cover the puddles when you throw in your trash. After it rains, you're wading through. Bring your hip waders. You wade through.
Oh, yes.
You've been doing this for 40 years.
I know. I know.
Oh my God. And as I get older, you need a safety railing for somebody to take a step up.
Lynn
They're too high.
fell.
Oh, did you ever hear that? Yeah, she went down the crack between the
She
dumpster
fell
and
into the crack between one of the dumpsters.
Oh.
There's and she had this huge hematoma on her leg. It's finally gone away.
Holy
Just think of a
cow.
toddler getting down there.
Yeah, she was in pain.
But anyway.
She didn't break anything, luckily, but the guys, they managed to get her out, and she went right to the
She's not
doctor.
gonna want this information. I think, so I think those are the sort of things that I would see, can we transition the conversation in minor ways to value?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Yeah, I mean, we, and that's why even this year I was saying, we've got to look, we're so tunnel visioned on cost,
Yeah.
you know, and expanding the lens. You know, Brian and I had a conversation before the budget year kicked off on this group is kind of the glue in between all the various departments. We have the opportunity to meet with everyone and making that connection. Hey, you guys should be talking to this group and
Yeah.
see if there can be some collaboration, and, you know, what can we do from the revenue side? Like, we don't spend any time talking about revenue. It's always about cost. So to your point, it's always about, you know, this cost.
Brian talks
this-
about revenue for the first time.
Right, this
Yeah.
budget, this, whatever, this line item went from this to this, and,
But what did you get for that?
exactly.
And did anybody value it? Did
Yeah.
it improve
Yeah.
something? We don't even have that discussion. Whether we don't report back that discussion.
Yeah,
Because we have spent money on things that people are very happy about, but we don't say,
yeah, no, so it's just one of those things where we're coming up on the end of February, right? March is gonna
it's a
suck,
hell of a month.
because we're gonna have to there's gonna be a lot of hard decisions. We will be voting, just to give you a perspective of what lays ahead, we're gonna get a draft of the warrant, and there's gonna be multiple iterations, right? We're gonna be going article by article, you know, do we approve, do we not approve? You know, we'll already had some discussion on capital planning items. We gotta get capital planning, and we gotta get all this done, right, in time for them to sign it by the end of the month. And then it's like, okay, now we have to prepare for town meeting.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, as you guys, we've got a week off, and just as we're, you know, going through, if you can just start to percolate ideas or concepts that you think could be important to put into that PowerPoint, so that when we start focusing on the PowerPoint, you know, we've got a good working concept or draft, you know, moving into. So that's the one thing I'd.
You know, and I think if we can begin to at least articulate or transition, part of what we do is try to make our departments successful. We are concerned around quality of life for our residents, quality of services for our residents. And so it makes us a little less of the bad cop.
Well, yeah, and I don't, so even though I delivered the presentation last year, quite frankly, I don't remember it. So maybe the first slide is just reading out our mission statement.
Yeah.
You know, our mission statement incorporates a lot of what you just said.
We want them to be successful, but we also want to be prudent about our investments.
Just a reminder too that when we're voting on the warrant, we still have to revisit all those planning board articles and vote on those.
Yes.
I don't even know if that'll require like a
Do
dedicated
we meet
meeting or
with the
something.
planners before
So-
that, or does somebody meet with them to understand what all those are?
So he came in to present, and the presentation there focused mostly on their budget, but I don't know if we want him to come back in and talk about the articles again, or give us an update, because I know like for the marijuana thing, the Cannabis Control Commission is finalizing their regs right now. I don't know if that's gonna impact the way that they've drafted their bylaw or anything,
Yeah.
but there's probably some late-breaking updates that we should know about from planning.
Yeah, so historically, we have had planning in specifically to just talk,
How about their,
and I tried to preempt that, and by saying, when you're in here talking about your budget, you know, let's talk about the warrant articles, just like we did with all the other departments. Hey, while you're here, let's talk about,
Yeah.
you know, capital planning items. But I would say.
But they're unique in terms of.
They're unique,
Yeah.
they're long, they're hard to understand.
Yeah.
So what I would say, and you know what? I'll talk to Dawn and Linda and see if we can even just get a draft of where things are right now. I think the sooner we have a draft
What's
of,
close to final?
even if it's a draft, even if we can continue, for me, I'm gonna have to keep on reading over those planning board articles. And even then, we'll probably have them back in and say, okay,
Now,
even with the resident lawyer on the committee,
They're reviewed by
we still
town
need-
council, aren't they, anyway, the
Oh, absolutely,
articles,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, sure.
yeah, but
But when does
I
that
still need a Cliff Note version.
It's on a rolling basis.
Yeah, I still need a Cliff
no, I
Note
agree with
version so I can understand it, so I can vote yes or no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll probably have them back in. Anything else you guys think we should mention, talk about, or prepare? I'm just putting, I'm formulating future agenda points that I need to build for upcoming meetings, so I'm just thinking through these things here. All right. If not,
If not, you will entertain a motion.
yeah, well, I will definitely entertain a motion to adjourn for this evening.
I so move.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
You're gonna second that? That's even better to hear. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Have a nice evening, folks. Take care.
But I hope Joe does something